Hello everybody and welcome back to the Champion of Champions. It's the final showdown and it's Mark Selby against Judd, the world number 9 up against the world number 1, the Jester versus the ace in the pack. Certainly looking forward to this one after two very similar performances, I might say, against Zhao and Neil Robertson yesterday. I've seen Mark Selby and Judd managing to defeat their opponents, which both would have been a very different and a very dangerous opposition for them. And now as we see Jump to walk out onto the main arena, the referee for this match is going to be Tatiana Wallace. And for the first time, of course, she's going to officiate the Champion of Champion finals now, after a lovely little week in Leicester. And now the trophy is going to be presented to players to try and take a picture with. And one of them, of course, will claim this title. We've had 4 different winners in the last 4 Champion of Champion events. We've had Mark Cullen, Judd, Ronnie O'Sullivan and Mark Williams last year. Let's see if it's going to be Selby to add to that list, or is it going to be Judd once again? Not for the first time, of course. It is his 6th Champion of Champion finals. Let's see if it's going to be another win there for him. So now the trophy picture has been done, and we are ready to get the match underway. It's going to be Chomp to get us started. And I have gone for Chomp to take the opening session. I was a bit conflicted on that because, I think Selby's going to be a bit fresher because of the match that he played yesterday against Neil Robertson. But ultimately, I think that, Chomp has been playing really, really well. He's lost 5 frames in 3 of the matches that he had to participate in against Zhao, against Li Beifan and against Bai Yulu. So far, had to come back through all the Chinese crew up to this stage. Let's see if he's going to be able to be challenged right now by Mark Selby. Of course, lost out the opening frame to Bai Yulu. He's lost one of his frames against Li Beifan quite early as well. But let's see what the approach from Selby is going to be straight away, as he's got the red lined up that he went for into the left corner, but he's going to miss it though. So the same red is going to bounce quite close towards the left hand side cushion. And where can we see the match? Not on social media, but if you're watching in the UK, you can do it on the ITV Sport, which is the way I'm doing it right now. And also, it's going to have to be sort of match room in other countries potentially as well. Now, let's see if Chomp is going to go for this red into the right middle. He will, and it's a lovely little start there for Chomp because he played that shot with power and certainly conviction. Gets himself lined up for the black, which would have been waiting there for him. And, of course, that nice little trophy is going to be, well, in the hands of one of the players, one way or another. Not in the first session, of course, with the first session featuring 8 frames to be played in between the 2 of them. So, of course, even if Selby or Chomp to take all 8 frames of them, they would, of course, still need a couple of more of those in the second session. And Chomp hasn't actually played too good of a positional shot and has to recover himself by taking another red into the middle and plays it nicely yet again. So rolls the black into the right corner once again. Now, it's 16 points of advantage and trying to have all the 3 reds potted as soon as possible. I think the way for him to try and do that right now is going to have to be sending the cube on for the blue for the next couple of shots. Chomp is having a look once more to see if he's going to have an opportunity to send the cue ball into the main pack of reds. He's got a bit of the angle on the blue to try and do that with the cue ball. And certainly does look like he is going to take the aggressive approach. He will. Is he going to be on the red now? I mean, I don't think he's got anything into the right corner. So the red that he went into quite quickly out there, I think just came out there for him nicely for it to be played into the left corner. But ultimately, the black is going to be compromised. The pink probably is as well. So trying to get the cue ball on for the blue ain't going to be an easy mission now for Chomp. But ultimately still should be the one that sees him with a chance to play a colour, whether it's going to be one of the bold colours, but instead he's going to cannon the cue ball in towards the red. And so it gets a little bit of a lucky kiss because he's still going to have that blue available into the yellow pocket, quite straight and quite close to the white on this occasion, which is going to give him full control over the cue ball. Try and send out one to the lower part of the table yet again. And Judd certainly is popular in the chat, as You know, I've seen quite a few people mention that he's going to be the winner. 72% currently of the entirety of the audience have gone for him to win this one, and I'm not going to be an exception. I've gone with Trump winning the match by a scoreline of 10 frames to 5. In total, I think he's going to run away with it in the second session, and ultimately, you know, Selby's best chance for me was always going to have to be the opening session, but now, I mean, Chum got himself into a bit of an awkward spot now, trying to play for the brown, and has to play that shot with the, you know, making sure that he's going to get the brown in. Playing the pot really nicely, to be fair. Gets the colour in, and gets himself lined up for the lower part of the table this time around. So red to be sent into the left corner, and the cue ball, sort of, you can try and play through this shot, get the cue ball round the table, and get it lined up for the black to be taken. Of course, try and make sure he's going to have a chance of having the black available into the left corner, which ain't going to be the case until he removes a couple of reds out of the way. He's tried to do that with the first one straight from the shot on the black. Manages to cannon that one in towards the black ball cushion instead. And he's going to try and eliminate the second one right now into the left corner. And from that point onwards, you can have the black being used into pretty much all the corner pockets. And it was a good start there from John, because he's about to get over 50 points plus mark in the opening frame. And, you know, Selby's weapon has been getting some good starts out there previously. Of course, managed to whitewash Stephen Maguire. Didn't get such a good start against Williams after losing 2 frames of the bounce, but still managed to come back with him winning 3 frames to 2. And yesterday, of course, did have that early 2-cushion advantage over Neil Robertson. And from that point onwards, it was never really a chance for Robertson to climb himself back into the frame equation. Maybe the best chance that he's had was that hour-long frame in frame number 7, but ultimately Selby managed to win that one. And the next frame saw him take that semi-final away from Robertson and defeat his opponent with a scoreline of 6 frames to 2. Now, once again, Trump just navigating his way through the reds plus black combinations. He's got the one that he's pushed onto the black ball cushion previously. Rolls that one in along the cushion nicely. Still doesn't look like he's going to stop right there, and can still try and get a century break even without the last red, which currently positioning himself onto the left-hand cushion, and 65 points, of course, is the gap for him. So, you know, taking the red and the collar will certainly get him over the finish line of winning the opening frame. Let's see which color is actually going to be there for him. I think he's going to try and take the blue into the left middle this time around, and just have a look to see if he's going to have a couple of reds available into the right corner. And of course, that early misjudgment from Selby of taking that long red didn't actually work out. Chump was able to go for the red quite confidently with the shot into the right middle, and ultimately managed to punish Selby with with a perfect response out there, because it is going to be the break of 71 points and counting for Chump. So gets himself lined up to see if that red is going to go into the right corner. And just having a look to see once again, if he's going to have to go for the pink into the right middle, he has to try and stun the cue ball, which ain't going to be perfect, so may actually choose to go for the red into the left corner instead. And try and play through this red. Use the left-hand cushion to his advantage and line up a shot on the black instead. So that was the approach, but of course he had to make sure he wasn't straight on the black. Otherwise he'll have to rely on perfect cueing and getting really deep into the white. Trying to accelerate it into the left corner once again. And get him lined up for the red to be taken into the right corner. Not for the first time, but instead he's going to try and play through the cue ball, so a lot of topspin to cushion, and gets the red lined up for the middle to be taken. Scores third time lucky this time around, as the red will wobble into the left middle. Of course, a bit surprised to see that, especially with Chomp playing that one with power, that the red has dropped in, and you can see a little bit of a reaction from Chomp, as if to say, okay, copy that, I'll be a little bit more careful on the next couple of shots approach. Now only is 3 shots away from making a century break in the opening frame right now. Of course, the odds for him making more than 1 century break in the entire final are pretty much even. And right now, certainly don't be even right now, because he is going to be a tenth of the way into claiming his title for the first time since UK Championship last year. Because not necessarily going to count as the ranking event title, but still think it's certainly not going to lack prestige, and certainly going to mean quite a lot there to Chomp, as he is going to make a century break to get himself underway. So the break of 103 points and counting for now, but looks like he will be stopped at this stage. But maybe you're just going to be able to roll the red in. You will. Don't think Chomp expected that, because he was ready to walk away from the table. Instead, he manages to roll the red quite nicely along the cushion, and a little bit of exhibition style. Ooh, bit of a banana shot on the black, and trying to get the cue ball above the baulk line. Don't think you can see the yellow, so a bit naughty that from Chomp, and not going to be able to make a total clearance with that. And ultimately just trying to get on the yellow, and a lovely little break of 111 points there from Chomp. Mark Selby had a couple of shots to be played quite early in the frame, but ultimately it was frame taken by Judd, and he now leads Mark Selby by 1 frame to 0. Century in the first frame, foreshadowing to things to come. Maybe, but it's going to be really difficult for him to try to run away from Selby the way he's managed to do that against Bayulu, Li Beifan and Zhao Xingtong. Because remember, if you talk about those three, they're all quite attacking players, and Mark Selby certainly ain't. He has made a early mistake in that frame by going for a long shot quite aggressively, but I think if you know anything about Selby, you just take that as an invitation for him to avoid any sort of attacking threat for the next couple of frames. Therefore, try and sort of grind out the performance from Chomp, and well, you never know, maybe get a couple of early chances to himself. But I certainly think that these are the signs that Chomp is playing well. He had a couple of very difficult reds to knock in on the way, especially the one which would have been the penultimate shot of the century break of 111, when he managed to roll the red along the cushion. It was a really nice shot. Nicely played there by Chomp. And I still think that he's going to have to see a bit more things out of Selby at this stage. But let's see what's going to happen now. Second frame is about to start now. And, well, the biggest thing that you have to be concerned from on Mark Selby's sort of behavior is going to have to be the fact if Selby plays really badly and Chomp plays really well, which of course sometimes it does happen in the final. I've seen that quite on a few occasions now. We've seen Murphy plays best snooker when he got to the China Grand Prix final with Mark Williams, when he was destroying everyone and was coming into that match as a massive favourite, and Williams managed to win the opening session by a scoreline of 7 frames to 1 and absolutely destroy and annihilate Murphy, and with I think that match ended by 10-3 or something. Then we had a couple of early sort of batterings of Mark Allen and Joe Yulon and Neil Robertson against Ronnie O'Sullivan in the final, but of course the opposition players managed to come back on those 2 occasions and ultimately force it aside, although both Joe Yulon and Ronnie O'Sullivan have actually lost out, even though they've had produced a brilliant comebacks in both of their finals at the English Open and Saudi Arabian Masters. Now it's a break-off shot by Mark Selby, and Chomp is going to try and make sure, well, he's going to have similar shots to be played there, Selby. And I think it was, realistically, I think it was the only shot in the opening frame that he had actually played by taking that red into the left corner. Right now, maybe Chomp is going to be able to try and do a similar sort of thing now. He's got the red lined up into the right corner. Very straight on this one, though. You've seen a couple of those missed by Neil Robertson and Kyle Wilson earlier in the tournament, but ultimately, I mean, neither of them did manage to sort of beat the likes of Zhao Xingtong, Li Beifan and Bao Yilong and get himself into the final. He is going to go for this red. He'll miss it, though. Playing that shot with power and trying to apply a lot of screw back on the cue ball was always going to get him into a dangerous zone. And in the end, it is going to be a chance presented to Mark Selby, although it's not necessarily going to be the perfect chance for Selby, because the red that I was talking about into the right corner, which was not the one that Chomp was trying to put himself, I mean, he's going to have the cue ball sent right into the reds. Very difficult to get the red into the pocket without having the cue ball to get stuck into those main pack of reds. So instead, I think it will be a safety approach now for Selby. Maybe he's found a plant into the left corner, though. He has. not enough of that screw back from Judd. I think he was trying to focus a bit more on the pot, and ultimately I think he's done that really, really well, because, clearly didn't have the cue ball anywhere near the bulk line cushion. So I don't think that was the approach. I think he was just trying to guide the cue ball into sort of that blue line for it to be played. And in the end, Selby managed to pick up a brilliant plant into the left corner, and now has the first chance of his own to try and make sure that the scoreline is going to be equal. And Trump ain't going to be having this match as easy as a couple of his recent meetings with the Chinese players recently, as I mentioned earlier this week. Selby still has a couple of difficult shots there for him to be played. And now just having himself lined up for the blue for the second time of asking. Bit surprised that he hasn't transitioned the cue ball for the black just yet. But I think that probably will be the case in a couple of more shots to come. And probably is going to be right now, because Selby clearly trying to get the cue ball onto the lower part of the table after taking the blue into the left middle for the second time in a row. Now a little bit of a screw back on the cue ball. Get himself lined up for the black to be taken into the left corner once again. Nice spot from Selby though. Yeah, he managed to find a good plant, and he still had full control of the cue ball at that time. As long as one of those reds didn't actually finish over the left corner, I think he was always going to be alright for the safety battle to resume. Now let's see just how much of a break building skills he has managed to keep from that yesterday's match against Steele Robertson. Of course, had a century break. I think that was the only century break that he managed to take, but lovely little 1-2-7 clearance, which I think we have seen in frame number 2. Robertson managed to respond with a century break of 104 points, I think it was. But ultimately, it wasn't enough on his way to the defeat of the Aussie. And the Jester managed to progress further into the tournament. Of course, being the Jester from Leicester and playing very much in front of the Leicester crowd, he could still play a massive role right now, but probably later on in the match, not quite now, with nerves still being settled down now by both Trump and Selby, you would think, quite early into those frames. Not really a sign that Selby's going to struggle on this break so far, as he takes one more black into the left corner. Gets himself lined up for one of the few leads that he's got available right now to him. Roll the red into the left corner, and once again play for the black for a couple of more shots. Getting yourself lined up for those reds to be taken into the right corner. And play the cue ball through this shot. I think he's going to be able to go around the main bunch of reds. Have himself lined up for the red into the right corner instead. And of course approaching the 50 plus breakpoint scored of his own. You know, he can get himself into a 60 points gap or so if he manages to take both of these reds away. And what's he going to have? Sort of 83 points on the table at that stage for Judd to try and take onto the comeback performance of his own. But of course, there's no real chance that Selby's going to settle for those 60 points. I think he's going to try and exploit more reds to be taken. And, I mean, the way he's played this shot is almost like he's got one more red just underneath the pink that might actually go into the left corner as well. And you can see there is just about enough of a gap for that red to be sent. And nice little positional shot from Selby once again. So gets himself lined up for the red to be taken into the left corner on the next occasion. So right now just try and have the blue to be potted into the left middle. Maybe he can try and send the cue ball in towards the main pack of reds, and decides not to do that on this occasion. So as I say, one more red now to be taken to make sure it's going to be 75 points left on the table there for Trump to produce some sort of a comeback, or of course Selby to try and have a century break of his own. Now the black for him to get 66 points clear with still 75 of those on the table. So the next red is going to ensure that, you know, the best that Trump can do barring soon, because he's going to be forcing a respot. And lovely little shot that from Selby to certainly ensure that it does look like we're going to be heading into the third frame quite quickly, with barely 22 minutes since the match has started. But also what a performance, and you know, so sort of clinical breaks so far that we've seen from Trump. And now with Selby trying to get himself over the line as he rolls the red in nicely. So now 67 points is the advantage, and 67 still on the table. So it does still look like very much he's all about business at this stage, and rolls the blue in. So I mean, he's tried to get the cue ball onto a position for those reds, and in the end it does look like the cue ball has faded in favour of Mark Selby on this occasion. And now just the white to be sent into the reds, and try and have that one set up for the blue to be taken into the left middle. Now 73 points, of course, is the advantage for Selby, so there's no way for Chom to be back in this frame, unless he wants to play some exhibition stuff as well, as we've seen him do in the opening frame, but that's more of a Ronnie O'Sullivan's thing, when he wants to get himself warmed up, and even though he's going to be sort of 80 points behind, still might actually go to the table and pot the last sort of 8 balls or so. Now, the main eyes have to be on Mark Selby trying to make a century break here, because he doesn't seem to be too far away from doing that. The break of 79 points and counting, so if he rolls the black in, still going to have 51 points on the table, so potentially a 1-3-7, you would think. It's going to be on the cards there for him, should all the 3 remaining reds be taken with the black. And sort of also having the total clearance to be scored. So it certainly does seem like he's managed to recover pretty quickly after that early frame mistake in frame number 1. And in the end, forced Trump into a long shot of his own. And it does look like that was the only shot that, of course, Selby played in the frame number 1. And right now, the same can be said about Judd, because he ain't going to be coming back to the table with the realistic chances there to try and climb this back and get himself another frame on the board, at least until frame number 3. And so far, what we've seen is a shot is taken by the player that he's going to break off, and then the next safety is going to be the last one that either Mark Selby or Judd Chum would have played. The story has managed to repeat itself in the second frame. Let's see if we're going to have one more century break right now. We will, and it is going to be the break of 102 points and counting. So Selby certainly does seem to impress the fans and, well, impress himself to an extent. It's a lovely little break there for him to respond to that century from Chomp. In the end, he ain't going to be able to produce the total clearance, but still is going to be a break of 102 points to get himself over the line. And it is now Mark Selby 1, Judd Chomp 1. Nothing to separate the players once again, as it's a very quick start to the match. Barely 25 minutes since the match has started, and we already have got the winners of the opening 2 frames. It is now 1 frame each, with both Selby and Chomp producing a century of their own to get them back level. And of course, one chance is all that players really have needed there. So we missed a long shot in the opening frame. Chomp's done the same in frame number 2. And what followed was a lovely low clearance from Chomp of 111 points. Selby managed to respond with, you could argue that Selby's position was a bit more difficult because he had to go into the reds quite early after the break of sort of 60 points or so, but still managed to split them up really, really nicely. Chomp had quite a few of those available quite earlier in the frame. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to matter right now massively, because right now, all of a sudden, it just turns into a 1st-to-9 match. And the third frame is going to be, well, probably the break out of the ordinary. I can't really see another sort of a century break being made by any one of these 2, but you never quite know. Certainly have got the quality. It's just all about the percentage numbers that I'm talking about right now, because it's very rarely you see 3 centuries being made back to back right next to each other, especially in the opening 3 frames of the match, where it usually takes players some time to get themselves back up to speed. And I think it's safe to say that both Selby and Chomp managed to do that very early in the Champion of Champion finals. They stole him for a reason. And so far, the fans have certainly would have enjoyed the start to this final showdown. Now let's get the third frame underway. And let's see if Chomp this time around is going to be able to produce a similar performance now to frame number 1. Or is he going to be Selby back on top and trying to do a similar thing? Might jump way too early. You might have put that in the draft, but I don't really think you can say that until maybe Chomp is going to win 5 frames on the bounce now, because Selby's one of the most consistent players on the tour. And therefore, I don't think Chomp is going to be able to run away from him. Of course, the players have met each other earlier at the Shanghai Masters, and Selby did manage to beat Chomp by a scoreline of 6 frames to 4. Another invitational event earlier this season. Now, once again, it's a break taken there by Chomp, and, well, I mean, Selby, just like he was in the opening frame, can have a long red. We all know what happened in the previous 2 meetings, but not this time around. He's going to be able to get the red in. Let's see if he's going to be on the colour, though. Camera has switched onto a replay a bit too soon, I think, because, yeah, he's got the yellow to be taken into the right middle, but I mean, realistically, is there going to be a point there for him taking the shot on? I don't really think that's the case, because if you're going to try and get the cue ball lined up for any of those reds into the left corner, you have to do and send the white onto the opposite side of the table. And therefore, ain't going to be the case now. Selby can win easily simply by taking 6 minutes per shot. He can, but, you know, to be fair to him, hasn't really done that in the previous frame, and you know, if anything, I think his frame was quicker than the one that Chomp managed to produce. Selby was certainly free-flowing quick in his break, and as I say, him playing a snooker shot right now probably is a logical move, because even though he could have taken the yellow into the right middle, it's still going to be very difficult for him to get onto the next red, which makes the shot pretty much pointless for him in that stage. Chomp having a look to see how the reds are looking on the lower part of the table. Don't think they're looking badly there for him. But ultimately, I just think he has to try and put all the power on the cue ball into the first cushion and make sure he's not going to be able to sort of run away from those reds once he bounces into them. And ideally wants to have the cue ball to be stuck to the red that he's going to be aiming for right now. And yeah, in the end, he hasn't played a good shot at all. I think the same red that he was intending to hit is going to be available to Selby. So that's why, you know, taking that extra shot and putting the cue ball in behind the yellow might work out perfectly now for Mark. Because he might not be lucky and may not be sort of satisfied with the way that the cue was finished up on the red. But the fact that he's got another chance now to get another break going on is certainly going to be a bonus. As he rolls the red in, going to be on the right side of the blue as well, which is going to be very important at this stage. And send the cue ball on for the right hand side of the table. He's going to be the blueprint for him to be taken and try and run away with it once again. The sort of the template of the previous frame is there for him as well, as I say. And now 11 points advantage. So far, both of these frames, of course, have finished with a scoreline of the opposition player losing to the player that has actually managed to take a century break on the board, with their scoreline being 111 and 102 points to 0 in both of these frames. Of course, the fact that Selby is not going to lose this frame to 0 probably puts him even more of a favourite now, with him being at the table as it stands. So now had to send the cue ball, and yeah, had to send it on the cue ball in the way on the black, so that, you know, he actually has cannoned the cue ball into a bit of a straight line there, so has to accelerate the shot on for the black into the left corner. And yeah, I think he was trying to do a bit too much there, Selby. And ultimately, it is going to be a chance wasted, because he's going to miss the black into the left corner. And now, back to the table steps Judd Chomp. You know, Selby has sent the cue ball into the majority of those reds. Clearly was trying to do all the damage in one single shot there for him. Ultimately took an eye off the pot at that stage, and right now it is going to be black taken into the left middle, and Chomp having a look to see if he's going to have a couple of more reds lined up into the right corner this time around, and therefore might actually go against going for the black and just take the green into its own pocket and send the cue ball for the left hand side to be playing a red in. And well, you say, Stephen, that Selby's going to take 6 minutes for a shot, but if anything, you know, if you're going to specify one of these two players so far, he probably has been making a bit more of rush decisions himself, especially that one of a long shot in the opening frame. You know, Chomp had a similar one, but at least he was trying to play that with getting the cue ball into the safe zone. Of course, Selby was leaving that cue ball to be lined up basically for the black to be taken onto the corner pocket, and right now, once again, I don't think that shot is going to do him a lot of justice. We have seen a couple of those misses on the black from Mark Selby yesterday against his performance against Neil Robertson. Now Chomp to try and take the red into the left middle, gets himself lined up for the blue, not for the first time. And ultimately he's got 4 reds available to his name, maybe has got 5th one with a plant to be taken into the right corner, which he's going to have a look right now. 99 points still on the table, so not too many of those as it stands. And Chomp once again just checking to see if he's going to have enough of traction on the cue ball to try and send it to the lower part of the table. And instead he's going to try and take the easy reds out first before going for the split of the position, which still at this point very likely to still require for him to win the frame in the visit to the table that he's currently on right now. So he'll take the rest shot and play the red into the right corner. And it's a smart shot now from Chum, because I think the pink is going to have to go on the black spot, which is currently vacant, and that way he's going to have the shot from the blue to cannon the cue ball in towards the reds. A bit more straightforward to himself. Also have himself positioned on the red into the right corner to be taken. So now 11 points is the advantage. So doesn't seem like a lot at this stage, but with those reds disappearing quite quickly, and Selby managing 12 points previously on taking 3 reds out of the game at that stage. Of course, Trump has taken a few himself. As it stands, he's going to have 7 reds on the table, and sort of a 20 points of advantage to try and hold on to. Rolls the pink from the black spot once again, and 2 more easy reds for him to be taken into, both of them probably into the right corner, one after another. Play the pink in between those two, and get yourself onto a 40 points advantage, and try and do the last bit of their work by trying to get a couple of those reds to spread out there for him nicely. Now I'm just going for the pink to be taken with a bit of force, because I think he landed with too little of an angle to try and take on the pink. In the end, plays the shot nicely, and once again he's going to be very straight for the red, which at this stage probably is going to be a bit of an advantage there for him, because he can just try and roll the cue ball through this shot, get himself lined up very straight on the pink, and try and take the cue ball into the main pack of 4 reds. But he's still very much looking at that plant into the right corner, so doesn't want to risk it without having the need for it. So let's see if he is going to go for that approach of trying to spread the reds out to guarantee himself best possible chance to go for a pot, or indeed he'll go for a risky approach and try and have a couple of those reds lined up with the plant into the right corner. Coming at the scoreboard once again, as it stands, he's 26 points away from Selby, with still 67 of those being on the table. I mean, he's studying the difference and the distance in between those 2 reds, and I think he has made the right decision and played a really good shot there by taking the cue ball into the main bunch of reds, and therefore he's going to accelerate himself off into a frame win surely now, with pink being respotted back in its original position. And right now it is going to be a couple of reds taken by Chomp without real hesitation or any pressure on his shoulders. 33 points now is the distance between himself and his opponent. Rolling one more pink into the left corner, and of course you have to go back to that early decision by not taking the black into the left middle. I think Chomp has actually managed to benefit himself quite nicely, and have the pink to be set up on the black spot for the majority of the break. And right now, when he managed to split the reds up quite nicely to his name, he's going to take the pink, which is going to lead him nicely on for a frame ball red to be taken into the right middle. And rolls the pink in nicely into the left corner. And as I say, the red into the right middle is going to be the frame ball there for Chomp to go 47 points ahead, with 43 on the table. Still very quick first 3 frames there being played, barring Snookers. Of course, if Chomp manages to roll the red in, not going to struggle with this one, and still going to have the positional shot on the pink in quite a nice fashion there. So once again, a 50 plus break. Not quite going to be a century break as it stands, but of course it is still possible there for Chomp to achieve that. But he's going to have to make sure he's going to take at least one of the expensive colours with 2 of those reds and produce a total clearance with one more red being quite a nasty position now on the black ball cushion, being quite far away from the pocket. So still unlikely for the century to occur as it stands, but plays a nice little shot there on the red to be taken into the left middle. He's going to try and take the black into the same pocket and just roll the cue ball on for the black ball cushion to have that red set up for it to be taken into the right corner. Now 73 points on the break, so still very much possible for a 108 clearance, but for that to be the case he needs to roll the red in. And that's not going to be the case. No, not quite 3 out of 3 there in terms of century breaks, but certainly a 2 out of 3 of a brilliant performance there from Judd, because once again, one chance is all he needs. And it is now Judd 2, Mark Selby 1, and he manages to re-establish an early frame lead after Mark Selby managed to respond with a century break. Let's see if now Selby's going to be able to respond with a 70 plus break of his own and get us onto an intermission break with the scoreline of 2 frames each, or maybe it is actually going to be Judd to lead by a scoreline of 3 frames to 1. It's very much a quick start to this frame. Once again, with not really playing any safety shots, and with the way the opening 3 frames have actually gone 36 minutes, if you count the breaks as well in between those two. Certainly, it's a brilliant stat there for the average shot taken for both Selby and Chomp. I think if anything, Selby was playing a bit too quick on the shots, especially that black that he missed after he was on 12 points of a break. Had a nice little early chance for him to set up a comfortable point advantage. In the end, trying to rush a bit, try to go very straight on the black. In the end, try to recover very quickly and hammer the cue ball in towards the reds. And of course, missing the black in progress has allowed Chomp to take the position under control and produce a break of 73 points, which ultimately was more than enough for him to get over the line and make sure he's going to lead Mark Selby by 2 frames to 1 going into the last frame of the first mini session. So Chomp has to make sure he's going to be able to try and do a similar sort of thing right now. Just wait for that Selby mistake, and if he remains to be clinical, I just think it's going to be very difficult for Selby to try and do anything about that stage, for the simple reason of, when you talk about the way you have to take this game to a new level, it's very difficult to do that if it's going to be a bit of a stop-start match, which so far for Selby has been. Chomp only needed two chances in 3 frames for him to get a nice little 2-1 lead. Of course, had one more long red not taken on frame number 2, which resulted in a Mark Selby century break. But now talk about Mark Selby. He's going to be the player to go for a break-off shot now. So let's see if things are going to start happening for Chomp at the early stage once again. Because remember, the break-off shot that he's taken in the previous frame, we've actually seen Mark Selby to take a long red into the left corner and play that one quite nicely. This time around, Chomp has got a red which is going to be inviting himself to try and go for it into the right corner. But as I say, the cue was going to be quite close towards the ball cushion. So I'm going to have to play this shot with conviction and hopefully control for himself. For the simple reason of getting the black lined up for the right corner. Ooh, played certainly with power and conviction for the shot. And bit of a lucky kiss that of the black, and he's going to be absolutely perfect on the pink. What a lovely long shot that was from the ace in the back. And now, once again, it is a story of a break-off shot comes in, and then all of a sudden, any one of the opposition players is going to go for the long red. Of course, we've seen the opening 2 frames missed on both occasions, and then frame number 3 was taken by Selby. This time around, it is going to be taken by Chomp. So let's see if Judd is going to take it into 3 out of 3 chances taken. And once again, get himself onto a very healthy lead of a 3-1 advantage going into frame number 5. Of course, still quite early to say that, with Chomp having very much limited amount of reds to his name right now. As the referee just trying to re-establish the pink onto the lower part of the bunch, with the pink spot being taken as it stands. So Chomp has to go for the red into the right corner this time around. I think he's got one into the same pocket to be played right underneath the pink. And is he going to be straight on the blue though? He was reluctant to get up on the shot, which is always going to be the sign that The shot hasn't gone according to plan for him. But I think he's just about on the right side of the blue to try and send the cue ball for the lower part of the table. Ultimately, he has to play this one with topspin. Potentially 2 cushion escape there for him. And yeah, in the end, couldn't really find a way to get himself lined up for the red. So had to try and take matters into his own hands and take a cue ball into the main bunch. And in the end, of course, it was the break of 13 points scored for Judd right now, but it was the break of 12 points scored by Mark Selby in the previous frame. So for now, it does seem to be an absolute carbon copy of every single frame of the previous one. Of course, Chomp has gone on to produce a break of 73 himself to win that frame, and Selby wasn't given one more chance. Let's see if Selby is going to be able to pull an on the reverse card on Judd and get himself accelerated away and into a nice little frame win. So for now, he is going to try and have the cue ball to be lined up towards the main pack of reds. I don't think any of the players is going to be too eager to try and send the cue ball into the top part of the area, for the simple reason of there's the red right over the right corner, which I think is going to be a bit of a tempting shot for any one of the 2 players to take. But Chompy is actually studying the fact that if he pushes the cue ball very close towards the green pocket, he's still going to be sort of taking that red on there for the chance of the cue ball being sent in towards the reds. And yeah, having a little bit of a conversation there. Not too sure what that's all about. You would think that's a re-rack, but you know, usually it's just about re-rack yes, no. Doesn't seem to be the case, so let's have a little listen. What Selby is actually going to be saying there to him. Yeah, I just think he probably refused the offer there from Chomp and gives him back the turn straight away. So I think Chomp is going to be, of course, he's going to be a bit more interested in trying to have those frames go in quite quick fashion there. I don't think Selby's going to care about that at this stage, especially with the way that we've seen 3 of the opening ones taken very quickly. Chomp is going to go for a double now into the left middle, so clearly trying to make things happen there for himself. Yep, so commentators just confirming there on ITV4 that Selby has refused the re-rack, so just saying that he probably wants to play the game on his terms, which is fair, as I say. And I think from what we've seen from Chomp's point of view, you know, he had that break of 73 and 111 points in the previous 2 frames. You know, it's going to be very dangerous of a force there, and Selby has to make sure he's going to be able to try and slow him down and, as they say, play the game on his terms. So once again, sending the cue ball into the main bunch of reds. Chomp is going to try and accelerate it away from the main pack. And just having a look to see if he's going to be able to do that with the cue ball and try and get in his safe zone. Of course, would have been a very different story had that red not been over the right corner pocket, or pretty much thereabout here. Chomp is going to try and exploit having brown or yellow to be in between the cue ball and the target red into the right corner to be taken. But still, doesn't seem like he's going to have an outcome for himself. So just send the cue ball onto the top part of the table, but only with a minor bit of force taken. And Selby will try and do similar sort of thing, you would think. I mean, he's got that red onto the top part of the table, but as I say, can't really show that red into the right corner for Chomp to be played. Therefore, Selby's going to try and knock the cue ball in towards their main pack of reds, and just trying to do that on the top 2 of them. Once again, clearly, he's here to play the safety battle. From his point of view, Chomp is looking to try and exploit the way of getting the reds to spread out, but doesn't seem to find that way at this stage just yet. And yeah, so now this time around he's got the referee asking the players if they want to have a re-rack. So, you know, maybe it's a little bit of a, yeah, Bit of a weird on that, because mind games have actually started there, you would think, because Selby refused the first re-rack offer from Chomp, and now you would feel like Chomp has refused himself. And, well, let's see. Selby is going to be determined. There is actually going to be a re-rack there from the commentator's words, but as I say, as it stands, it's very unlikely that players are going to agree on something right now, because it does seem to be a bit of a mental performance now from each of them too. And of course, whoever wins the safety battle is going to be having a massive win under their name. And in the end, Trump was trying to make this happen once again there. But, I mean, unless he gets the cue ball onto Red to try and cover the shot into the right middle. I mean, he basically tried to play the shot away from the main pack for the first time of asking. Still not showing that Red into the right corner for Trump to be, for Selby to be played. But with him using the Red to be taken into the right middle, could have left that on. And in the end, Selby is just going to try and roll the cue ball in towards the main bunch of Reds. And let's see what Trump's response is going to be to this one now. Certainly going to get the turn back under his name. Yeah, it is going to be touch and ball now, but the crowd are getting involved here as well, so let's say it's a bit physical, and it's getting a bit heated there with the atmosphere. You know, people in front of the crowd shouting that it should be a re-rack right now. Selby and Chomp having none of it for now. Clearly trying to prove something, if not to each other, then to themselves. And, well, of course, it turns into a massive frame now from their sort of mental perspective as well. Selby having that touch and ball advantage is going to mean that he's going to be able to try and roll the cue ball away from the main pack. And back to Chomp it goes. And of course, for Selby's point of view, you had to make sure he's covered the Red by the right corner, but also by the Red for the right middle. And yeah, Chomp is having a look once again to see if he's going to be able to get through to any of those. And if the answer is no, he's going to have to roll the cue ball into the main bunch of Reds once again. And does seem to be the case here. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really see the way that we're going to get out of this situation other than a re-rack. But it's going to be touch and ball once again. And yeah, I don't think Chomp is going to be too happy with himself. And therefore, he's going to try and make this frame one in the next visit there for himself. Of course, same goes for Selby. For now, just play the cue ball away from the main area. He had that zone where he wanted to send the cue ball in towards previously. Of playing a nice little shot on Trump this time around. Let's see if Judd is going to be able to get through to this Red. No seems to be the answer. And once again, roll the cue ball into the main bunch of Reds. And that's going to be the blueprint there for him until, of course, Selby's going to show anything to Chomp that he's going to feel like, you know, he can go for an attacking approach. Instead, it is going to be Selby once again trying to send the cue ball onto the top part of the table, you would think. And maybe get one more Red into the left corner for... I mean, that's not really going to win him anything, because that way you're not going to have the cue ball to be sent onto the top part of the table, and therefore he's just going to give the momentum back to Judd at this stage. So, as I say, I don't think Chomp wants this frame to go on forever. So I don't really understand what has changed from Selby's offer refused when he didn't want to re-rack himself, and probably, you know, what is it, 15 minutes later, we're still down in the same position. So pushes the Red away from the main pack and has the one available for the left corner if, of course, Chomp or Selby are to push cube onto the top part of the table. And I think Chomp is going to try and exploit that right now with trying to get the white into that safe zone. Still has to be very, very careful onto the two of those Reds. One into the right middle, which is very much possible, and one by the right corner pocket. And yeah, I think... Let's see if he's going to have the cue ball to be sent in between the yellow and the green zone, but I don't think he's played the shot well. And ultimately, I think Selby's going to get what he wanted, and he's going to have that chance to take that Red into the right corner. Of course, the question has to be asked, is he going to be able to get himself on the black here? 13 points advantage for Chomp. He ain't going to be anything at this stage. If Selby does manage to knock the red in and get himself onto the colour. Of course, he had a lovely little long shot taken in frame number 2. But he hasn't managed to take this one. That could be a massive miss from Selby, because I think he always felt like he was going to get the red in, but it was going to be the main difficulty with getting on the next colour. And in the end, it ain't going to be the case there for Mark. And Judd is going to step back to the table and try and get himself to run away with it and get a 3-1 lead ahead of the intermission break, which at this stage, as it stands, is going to be very important from Selby's point of view, especially if Chomp does go on to convert that mistake from Selby's point of view into the one that ultimately is going to cost him another frame. And you have to say, barring this frame, there hasn't really been a frame previously where Chomp needed more than one chance presented to himself. He obviously managed to take 13 points on the previous chance at this frame already. And right now, as he gets himself a second chance on board, rolls the red into the right corner once again. Has got the black lined up for a couple of more shots. And the black ball Scott is going to be free up from any sort of danger from those red balls being potted. And he's going to try and build a lot more points now than just 13 points of advantage that he had previously to his name. Not going to have any reds on the cushion, which at this stage is probably going to be a slight disadvantage there to Chomp. For the reason of, if he is to miss any of those reds, Selby should have a straightforward clearance of his own. And, rolls the red in nicely into the left middle. So once again, I think he's going to try and take that red away from the main part of the table, just about on the top part of the blue. And he's going to try and play the cue ball through that shot now, hammering the blue into the right middle, getting himself lined up for the same pocket on to try and play a red in. So still not going to have an easy shot to try and play when he wants to get that pack of reds to be spread out, because it's located quite in an awkward spot there for him. But until that is actually the case, he may be able to get himself enough of a point advantage to not actually require any one of those 4 reds. And now take the red into the right corner. And now to try and take the black into the left pocket this time around. So 49 points of an advantage there to himself as he rolls the black in. Break off 36 points and counting. And apart from the little cluster of 4 reds that I mentioned, all the other reds are going to be in quite a nice position there for Chomp. So it doesn't feel like, did really... Realistically, if you have to sort of go back to that opening shot from Selby, where he was working really hard to trying to get himself set up for that red to be taken into the right corner, instead he's managed to miss that shot, and because he didn't get himself on the colour anyway, and presented a nice little chance away to Chomp, which Judd is going to try and perform on quite nicely now, getting the break of 45 points as he rolls one more red into the left corner. Gets himself lined up for the black to be taken onto the left-hand side of the table. And to go 65 points clear with 75 on the table. So the next red plus colour combination is going to get him over the line. And, still look like we are going to finish the opening 4 frames in less than an hour. Unless it's going to be a really lengthy of a break from Judd Chomp's point of view. Because it is going to be frame ball now for him to take the black into the right corner. Another 50 plus break. We've seen one of those in every single of the frames so far. 2 century breaks, a break of 70 points. And now the break of 60 points and counting from Judd Chomp, because it is now going to be his frame for the taking. And a 3-1 lead there against Mark Selby, which probably isn't going to go the way that Selby would have wanted to be heading into that second session. But ultimately, it was expected at this stage, you have to say. Chomp clearly has been more consistent of the players. Pretty much made no mistake, especially from the pot success point of view. And that red and black combination, which were missed by Selby on the previous occasion in one of the earlier frames. Of course, it cost him the frame and a chance of taking that frame away from Chomp, ultimately getting himself back in front And right now it is going to be the break of 69 points for Chomp to try and get it onto a century break. Because he could have done that on the previous occasion, but was stopped on the red to be taken into the right corner pocket. He's going to try and take a couple of more of those right now as he rolls the red into the right corner once again. Plays the cue ball through the shot. Gets himself lined up for the black to be taking into the left corner this time around. So the break of 84 points right now. And by the way, in the previous shot, played the really nice cannon on the cue ball to try and have the remaining two reds separated away from each other. And, he's taken 11 reds as he stands, with him taking the 12th one now. Played blue twice, and he's going to try and knock the black for the 10th time here. So apart from him making a break on 13 reds instead of 15, which you would usually have on the table, but because Trump has had a break of 14 points previously, now rolls the red into the left corner. So now for a century break, and a break of exactly 100 points, for him to try and roll the black into the right corner pocket. It was quite a lengthy frame out there for him, but in the end, he's going to have the perfect outcome, and it is going to be the break of 100 points and one more century there for Judd. 3 out of 4 opening frames have actually seen a century. 2 from Trump and 1 more from Selby's point of view. Now let's see if he's going to be able to go sort of maybe a couple of points further than the break of 111 points produced in that opening frame. Because if he is to make a total clearance, he can still go on to make 127 points of a break, which of course will equal the break that Selby has managed to produce himself yesterday against Neil Robertson. And Judd Chomp certainly seems to be flying through the gears. I'm not sure if that actually is going to count towards that 100 centuries that you have to make in a season for that 100,000 bonus, because it's not quite a ranking event. But I suppose they were actually counting their Shanghai Masters one, so probably would say the same about this tournament now, as it is going to be the break of 114 points, and Judd Chomp is going to step away from the table, and certainly he's going to do that with a 3-1 of a gap to his name as we approach the intermission. Very quick opening 4 frames, but it is the ace in the pack leading Mark Selby by a scoreline of 3 frames to 1 as we're heading towards the intermission break of 15 minutes time. And when we are back, we do hope to see a bit more clinical performance there from Mark Selby, but Judd Chomp certainly has been going through the gears and so far has managed to leave the best performance very much till last for the final. 15 minutes time, and we'll be back for the main action to resume on the main table here. Right then, everybody, the 15 minutes intermission is now over, and let's see what the second mini session will bring from Mark Selby's point of view, because apart from a nice little century break that he's managed to make, I haven't really seen a lot of him, and we certainly have seen a lot of Judd making 2 century breaks and a break of 73 points as well, to make sure he's going to try and be leading Mark Selby by a scoreline of 3 frames to 1. So once again, Selby got himself up, lined up with a long shot to be taken into the left corner. I've seen a couple of those taken, but also have seen plenty of those missed on the previous occasion there. This time around, Selby's going to turn this one down and just play a safety shot out there. Hi, hello Kevin, it's nice to see you back in the chat there. And yes, certainly looking forward to the second mini session, and I still think he's got a lot of potential for Selby to try and improve. And Trump has already managed to show some brilliant game up to this point, and it is certainly great final it is turning into. But Trump ain't going to be happy with the safety shot that he's played, catching yellow pretty much full ball when he had a chance to roll the cue ball in behind the ball cushion. And last spot time now with a break of 15 minutes. It's reaching half an hour now for Selby. Let's see if he's going to be able to put that behind him. Not at this occasion, he won't. And once again has to see that time getting extended there for himself. And best of 19 and 3-1. Still early to tell. Yes, Stephen, absolutely. Nice to see you back in there as well. But I just think that the concerning thing has been for Selby that, you know, apart from that century break, I haven't really seen a lot of him. And Trump just seems to be going through the gears, making 2 centuries already. And the break of 73 points in the meantime. So it could very much be over if John manages to take the second mini session in the same way that he's taken the first one. And it's 6-2 of a scoreline in favour of the world number 1. I think the odds were lenient towards Selby anyway, because even though he has played really well against Robertson, he felt like, you know, Trump has been managing to do similar sort of thing there against probably the tougher opposition. You could argue with Zhao Xingtong, Li Beifan and Bai Yulu. But, I mean, you can't really argue from the opposition that Selby had to face. Neil Robertson, Mark Williams and Stephen Maguire probably is actually a more difficult route to the final than the one that I mentioned for Trump. And ultimately going to guide the cue ball in behind the ball colours nicely there, Selby. Blockbuster this one. Do you think Selby playing Leicester will help? Yeah, I did say that, but I said he's going to help him later on in the match, because I don't think the crowd will be able to sort of get in the head or intimidate Trump. And also, I just think he's got so many fans here anyway that, you know, Selby will have a bit of an advantage, but ultimately I don't think it's going to be sort of big enough of an advantage for him to sort of make any difference on Trump's point of view. And let's be honest, in the opening 4 frames, it doesn't really look like it's made a positive difference on Selby either, for him losing 3 out of those 4. And quite a bit of pressure to perform, maybe, but as I say, I still think that he's going to come down to the second session. And for now, just trying to get himself settled in the match. That century would have helped, but certainly making a few of those mistakes as well. But Trump doesn't seem to be flying through the safety either. Gets another invitation away to Selby now to take the red into the left corner. Mark is going to have the positional shot on the black. Should he be able to knock the red in and guide the cue ball sort of on the right side of the black. And in the end, he's decided to take that red with a bit of a sort of cushion to his name and playing for the pink, which is currently quite close to the left corner. So he'll play the shot nicely, to be fair. Didn't want to risk playing for the black, which of course, had he missed that red, could have had a couple of those reds to give away to jump into the left corner. Instead, it is going to be a chance to Mark Selby to try and produce another comfortable break of sort of, you know, 50 points or so to get him accelerated away and at least have that gap down to a single frame between himself and Judd. At this stage, it wouldn't be the worst case scenario there for him. Wobbles the red in the right middle though, and ultimately he's going to be very straight on the blue here. So we're going to try and make sure he's going to have the perfect angle on the red to be taken into the left corner for the next shot. Still does seem like he's going to have a couple of those reds available to his name, but he's going to need perfect positional play on each and every single one of those. Chomp don't mind being behind if Selby were to get a lead because Chomp can come back as only before. True, I think it's a good point, and I'll agree with that, that if anything, the lead for Chomp is going to be deadlier than the lead for Selby for the simple reason of, Chomp is the world number one. He's been there before, and even, on a couple of occasions this season before. And that's not the way for you to be a Selby, though. It's taken the red, which probably was the right shot there for him. And you can see with that angle, the cue ball might have actually had the red to disappear into the right middle. Ultimately, didn't actually occur on that occasion. And it is going to be Chomp to step back to the table and try and perform back on his show. Gets the red in nicely into the left corner, although had the cue ball position in a bit of a tricky situation there for him. So he's going to have the blue to be taken into the right middle and try and accelerate the cue ball onto the top part of the table. 3 tons in 4 quality snooker, certainly, and you can add the break of 73 points for Chomp to that as well. And now trying to get himself lined up perfectly on the red, by the way. What a lovely shot Chomp has played on this occasion. Getting the cue ball to bounce off 3 cushions and very close to the red to be taken into the right corner. In the end, played the shot pretty much to perfection. And now gets himself lined up for the black to be taken into the left corner. So a little stun shot for the red to be taken into the opposite side of the table to be played. So we don't always come back from a deficit more times than not. Chomp does. Have you noticed that? Well, not really this season. I think before in his career he could say that, but if you talk about Selby and Chomp, you can say in Selby's favour that he's actually had sort of 4 world championships to his name. Chomp only has 1. So I think Selby likes to lead from the front, but I'll probably say the same thing about Chomp anyway. I think it's difficult to say for me. I've seen Selby come back from being 3 frames, 4 frames down even this season earlier. But also I don't actually think that Selby puts himself into that situation too many times in his career. And now once again Chomp tried to get a couple of more reds in open play there for himself. And in the end he's going to try and have that cue ball lined up for the pink to be taken into the green pocket. So I don't know really is the answer for that question, but for now as it stands, the world number 1 against the world number 9, I think it's going to be very much mission impossible for Selby if he goes for sort of 5-1 down or 6-2 down going into the second session. I just think he's not going to be able to win 4 more frames than Chomp. And Chomp was clearly trying to get in behind that red to try and play into the left corner or left middle. In the end, he ain't going to be able to do that right now. And the break of 29 points does seem to end here for Chomp's liking. 16 points of advantage with 99 points on the table. I've seen Selby make comebacks but not get over the line. Well, I've seen that on a couple of occasions with any players, realistically. I think Ronnie's really famous for doing that. When he forces a decider but still comes the wrong side of it. Has done that so many times, especially in recent years. But ultimately, don't really think that you see Chomp pull the comebacks off there because he doesn't really have to. He's going to be there or thereabouts in the game, and very rarely you see a whitewash or a 6-1 loss from Chomp's point of view when he's on the receiving end of it. Sometimes he'll try and do that to the likes of, maybe Ding, maybe Robertson. And, from me looking to head-to-head their matches, I think he's done that to Selby on a couple of occasions. Has he not done that in the UK Championship last season? Where he's managed to have a convincing win over Selby. It wasn't last season, sorry, it was 2 years ago. In 2023 I should say, and back to Chomp it goes after a little bit of a safety exchange. We haven't seen too many of those, which is probably why Selby's still a bit rusty to get himself off into a great start now, and rolls the cue ball away from the main pack of reds now with Chomp, trying to have a bit of distance in between the cue ball and the target reds. Wasn't Chomp behind Weezer and won that match? Don't really think so. If you talk about the International Championship, nobody won a match against Weezer because he was leading by 4 frames to 0. And Weezer managed to win 6 frames on the bounce and take himself into the quarterfinal, winning that one by 6 frames to 4. Business kept me away off now, mate, for a few weeks. Happy snooker. Well, yeah, as I say, Kevin, it's one of those snooker matches that you could actually watch on the TV, especially if you're watching in the UK. But lovely to have you back in the chat. And remember, we do have Riyadh season coming up, so the 167 maximum break is going to be on for next week. From Wednesday to Friday, you're going to have Karen Wilson, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Sean Murphy, Ding Junhui, Zhao Xington, John Karen Wilson, Mark Selby, all featuring that tournament. Actually, I said Mark Selby. I don't actually think Selby's in that tournament. Mark Williams, John Higgins certainly are. And Neil Robertson should be there or thereabouts as well. And I'll check you can, but I'll tell you for free, you can't really... The thing about Wu Yize, you can't come back against him because he managed to win the International Championship, and winning the International Championship means he hasn't lost a single match in the China campaign. So Trump clearly didn't have a comeback like that against him. I think he had a comeback against someone else in the International Championship, but just trying to think the opposition players that he had to go through. I think he had to play Matthew Stevens, but I don't think there was a comeback. I think he was trying to dominate Stevens at that time. And yeah, I can't really think of any more comebacks that Trump. I think he was playing against Naponsen Khan, and he was able to win that one by 6 frames to 4, 6 frames to 3. Not too sure about that one, but he was dominating Saikham for the majority of the match. And I think he had a 5-1 lead, which Saikham did manage to take a couple of frames away from Trump. And now let's see if Selby's trying to go for a long shot himself. He does go for a brilliant long shot into the right corner. Lost the cue ball a touch, but ultimately it's a wonderful little pot there by Selby. And now gets himself lined up for the black to be taken. Into the left corner this time around. So let's see if the cue ball is going to be played into the reds here. And he's trying to avoid that. Lovely little shot there by Selby because he's still going to get the black in. And the position on the red was always going to be there for him. So lovely little shot there from Mark. And yeah, after the Riyadh season, of course, you've got the UK Championship, the first Triple Crown event. Before, we've got the likes of Snooker Shootout and the Scottish Open to follow. Tom Ford and Li Bei Fan being the current winners in those two respective tournaments. With the UK Championship being won by Chomp last season. Lovely little shot once again by Selby playing through the cue ball. Gets himself lined up very close for the black. And ultimately has got a prime chance now to get that gap down to a single frame deficit. Nopon Saikham, yes. Well, no, he wasn't getting a comeback against Nopon Saikham anyway, because as I say, he was leading 5 frames to 1 against him or something. UK Championship quality snooker, yes, looking forward to that one. First Triple Crown event. We already know the top 16 players they're going to feature. By the way, Wu Yize included it in their 16 seeded players. Among the likes of Mark Selby, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Judd, Karen Wilson, Neil Robertson, Mark Williams, John Higgins, Mark Allen, Ding Junhui, and many others featuring in the top 16 ranking players to be in the seeded side of the draw for the UK Championship. And the qualifiers is going to start as soon as the Riyadh season finishes. So going to be very interesting to watch the Judgment Day from that point as well. Will be dangerous from now on. He will be, and as I say, don't overestimate don't underestimate, I should say, Wu Yize's capabilities. He is going to be very dangerous going into that tournament. I still think that it's going to be very difficult for him to try and get into the quarterfinal stage because it's going to be such a high-quality tournament. And, you know, in snooker, it's very rarely you see players going on a run of winning tournaments unless it's going to be the likes of Judd Chomp, John Higgins, maybe Mark Williams and Ronnie O'Sullivan there because, you know, of the quality of these players. But even Mark Selby, it's very rarely that you see him go on a run of winning a couple of tournaments on the bounce. So I don't think it's going to be possible with Wu Yize for that to be the case. And now Selby trying to go through the gears himself, getting a break of 40 points and counting, rolling one more red into the right corner. So now 25 points advantage over Judd Chomp, so needs 2 more reds to get himself a frame on the board. And ultimately, it's going to be the first real test of, you know, maybe the way that Judd Chomp is going to try and handle pressure, which is going to be a lot more of a, if Selby is to be victorious in the frame, and take it into a 3-2 over deficit for him to try and overcome, going into a late part of the first session. Wu Yize really young and already won a title. That's pretty good doing. Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. And don't get me wrong. incredible performance from him in International Championship. He can't really come back at the Champion of Champions or the round season for him not being at the, well, not winning a tournament of the criteria that was required for you to feature in the Champion of Champions. Of course, the International Championship wasn't amongst those tournaments, and ultimately he's still not going to be the top 10 player for him to feature in the Riyadh season. But you'll be back in the UK Championship, Triple Crown. First time for him, of course, to be a seeded player going into that Triple Crown event. Let's see now if Selby's going to get himself over the line, as he has to go for a little stretch to try and reach the red, to take it into the right corner. He will, and it is now going to be a 3-2 lead for Judd to try and hold on to. Selby managed to do the dirty work quite early right now, and accelerate himself onto the black to be taken into the left corner. We'll have a little break that from Selby because it's 64 points and counting, so of course not going to be a century break once again with 35 points. If you add those to the break of 64 points, which Selby has managed to achieve previously, it is going to be 99 points of a break, which is the maximum there for Selby. Selby hard to run ahead of. Granted, he is. But that's why it was very important for Chom to win 3 of the opening 4 frames to make sure that if Selby goes on a minor run himself, he's going to be able to have that gap sustainable and try and hold on to it. But same can be said about Chomp, I would say. Tournament red spot success, by the way, 26 out of 26 by Selby. That is nothing short of ridiculous because Chomp hasn't even played, he's played exactly half of the number of shots with the rest, taking 13 on the previous occasion and making 11 of those. Selby ain't going to be able to get a transitional shot on the yellow. So just try and roll the cubo in towards that colour. And so 54 points in the end is going to be the deficit, and 70 points is going to be the break there for Mark Selby to get him over the line. And it is now going to be Judd 3, Mark Selby 2, going into frame number 6. You can see a bit of a change there in the average frame time taken. What a joyful day, Snooker and Coffee Great covering. Thank you. Now, Kevin, as I say, thank you very much for joining in. And we'll still have the second session no matter what. We guaranteed ourselves to witness 12 frames of Snooker. Let's see if it's going to be a lot more than that, with a couple of more frames required for Selby to try and win ahead of the second session for him to make sure he's still going to be in the mix. Because, as I say, if Trump is to go 3 frames unbeaten now and go sort of 6-2 ahead of Selby going into that second session, I still think he's going to be very much too much of a catch-up for Selby to try and play. Ultimately, he's managed to do that minimal task quite early, getting that frame on the board, and now only trails by a single frame of a deficit there to Judd Chomp. And Chomp himself, of course, has to realise that he's up against one of the very best players in the World Snooker Tour, and he has to be careful with not letting Selby to try and run away himself, because Selby's capable of doing that. Probably it's not going to be the first name that you think about of winning 5 frames on the bounce on the tour, because of how consistent he is and the approach that he takes, trying to wear the opponent down, trying to play his own style of snooker. And ultimately it is now going to be Judd Chomp time to try and respond to Selby winning that frame. But of course, for now as it stands, Chomp, whenever the chance comes to Judd, he does seem to take it for now. Let's see if it's going to be subject to change in frame number 6, which is about to get underway. It's very important, the opening stage of it, to right through there from Chomp's point of view and just get himself lined up for a nice little safety battle to be ahead of, and hopefully end that quite soon, with it being Selby's break-off shot to try and be taken once again for him to get that frame number 6 underway. Still very much ahead of the schedule, you would think, with an hour and a half taken for the previous 5 frames, including the intermission and all the breaks in between those frames. It is now Selby to try and run the cue ball away to the top part of the table. Didn't really look like he was happy with the way he's played the shot, although he got the cue ball into a nice little safe zone at that time. Selby goes in and out of form at his best. He's very dangerous. Probably agree once again. I don't think he's managed to perform on a consistent level at this stage of the year just yet. I think, as I mentioned, previous best record was the semi-final reach of the Home Nation Series at the English Open, where he managed to beat the likes of, I think it was Luca Brissell. No, it wasn't Luca Brissell. It was Jackson Page. And he managed to beat, I think it was Elias Lester as well. And ultimately get himself nicely off into that semi-final stage with Judd, which he still ultimately lost out on. Shanghai Masters, if you want to count that quarterfinal, as a major appearance there for him as well. And ultimately, apart from that, haven't really seen the best of Selby, which probably is going to be the confirmation of him going in and out of form. But there's nothing you can do from a shot like that from Judd. Brilliant long red, taken very, very nicely. And gets a little bit lucky to be perfectly on that yellow into the green pocket. But what a lovely shot that was, deserving all of the luck on that yellow. If anything, would have been really unlucky had he not managed to get himself anything off that brilliant long putt. But, I mean, the approach that he's taken on the shot probably suggests that he's going to try and get the cue ball to the lower part of the table right now. And clearly it doesn't seem like it's going to be easy there for him to try and do it. He's trying to hammer the yellow into the green pocket, and he's playing the shot pretty well, to be fair. Going to have the cue onto the lower part of the table, which probably is the best that he could have hoped for, especially with so little angle on the yellow being taken into the green pocket. Table playing okay this weekend. Most few can play recovering for a final. Yeah, Kevin, as I say, when you say a few, you had Sean Murphy complaining about the schedule, not really the table. I think you had Robertson to an extent. I think that was in China though. Sorry, Robert. I think that was Trump saying that the pockets haven't actually been too forgiving there for him. And, you know, I think, Trump goes for the red now into the left. Oh, he misses that one. I'm going to come back to that point a little bit later on. So it's going to be a chance given away to Selby. And let's see the grade of that chance given away. Is he going to be able to get through to the red to try and play into the left corner? He will. But ultimately, still not going to be able to pot that one. Yeah, so I didn't really understand that point of Trump's comments out there, because he was saying that pockets seem to be a lot more forgiving to the lower seeded players. And his point was that he always takes those reds and colours right into the heart of the pocket. And when the lower seeded players are going to be on the break himself, it's going to be a bit of a different situation for them, because sometimes they might rattle it in the jaws of the pocket. And the red or colour might still bounce in. So I didn't really understand the point there from Chum, who plays a decent safety right now, by the way. Because surely if you're going to be saying that you roll the red into the heart of the pocket anyway, then you're going to have a more of an advantage over the players that are going to try and rattle it from the jaws of the pocket. And therefore, I mean, the percentage point is going to be on your advantage rather than on your opposition player. So I didn't really understand what that was all about. But I suppose you're always going to have that conversation of, pockets being quite tight in Belfast. And of course, Trump used that in his advantage, because he said, even though the players were complaining about the pockets being really tight in Belfast, he still managed to get himself off into the cider whilst being a runner-up. Lovely little shot played by Selby on this occasion. Sends the cue ball to the top part of the table this time around. Trump was saying he's playing sharper than some less players. Bigger pockets means easier. Yes, true. But I don't really understand the point anyway. If you're going to tell me the bigger points are easier, but surely it's going to be easier for the world number 1 than it is going to be for the world number 64. That's my point about it. And if he's going to play that affects his mental game, well, I mean, I'm sorry. You just have to discipline yourself a bit more and try and keep your concentration and focus on throughout the majority of the match. As I say, I don't really get that point anyway. And Selby always is a tough opponent. He definitely is. He definitely is. And the thing about Mark Selby is he's always going to be there or thereabout. And he's proven that time and time again. Now let's see if he's going to have this red to be sent towards the left-hand side of the table. Plays the cue ball nicely. And sends the white to be cannoned in towards the black ball cushion. And onto the top part of the area. Let's see if Chomp is going to go for one more red to be played along the cushion into the right corner. And maybe not on this occasion, but he's looking at this one. The corridor for the cue ball to be sent onto the ball cushion once again. He's there for him, but maybe it's not going to be enough of an invitation for Chomp to try and take. Yeah, he has gone for a long red, and in the end he has missed that one. Let's see if the same red is going to be available to Selby. It will be. So very much similar to the shot that he's taken in the second frame, which ultimately cost him the frame on a break of 102 points, as followed by Selby. Let's see now if Mark is going to be able to produce some sort of a similar performance right now. There'll be great chance today. Trump not on fire. Much lately. Yes, true. With him missing that long red, it looked like Trump was going to be able to run away with it before the intermission break came. But Selby managed to turn the page there for him. And now he's going to try and get a break going for himself. Gets the blue into the right middle. And once again has got a wide short selection in terms of all 6 colours being available, which is very rarely you see on a snooker table at such an early stage of the frame. And also, he ain't going to be short in reds right now, with him taking one into the left corner as he stands. And getting himself lined up for the black, you would think, into the opposite side of the table. Play through the shot and get the cue ball lined up for the red to be taken into the left corner on this occasion. So just having a look to see if he's going to be able to take the second lowest red, currently located very close towards the black ball cushion. And Selby is going to try and see if he's going to be able to do that right now. Maybe he's actually looking to see if he's going to make contact with the other red, play that one into play. But as I say, I still think it's a bit too early for that to be the case. Take the easy reds out of the game and then have the more difficult ones to follow. And I think he's going to go for that red second lowest on the table and finds a nice little gap in between the other 2 reds to guide the cue ball, set it up for the black to be taken into the right corner once again. So 12 points advantage here for Selby, still 115 on the table. So he ain't going to struggle in terms of having available reds ready there for him to be taken. But ultimately has to be very much precise and accurate in his cueing for the black. Of course, we have seen black missed off the spot a couple of times against Neil Robertson and earlier today against Judd. Hopefully that's not going to be the case there for Selby fans, to get us back level onto 3 frames each. And of course guarantee for any one of the players, if of course that is to be the case for them to lose the opening session. Of course you still have to bear in mind that it still could result in a draw with 4 frames 1 each. It will be set up perfectly for the second session to be very interested indeed. Now Selby gets himself lined up for the black once again to be taken into the right part of the table. Gets himself with a nice little shot and the angle on the red to try and play through the shot. And once again using a couple of cushions to his advantage to get the shot on the black set up in the opposite side of the table. And for now he had to take the black into the right corner for every single time here. And I think that he was trying to play the angle on the cue ball on purpose now to accelerate the white off into the main bunch of reds and have himself set up for the couple of those reds to be taken into either left or right corner on the next couple of shots. So let's see if he's going to be able to play through the shot right now, and hasn't really played the shot well. Although cannon the red nicely in towards the left middle, and once again the broadcasting team just focusing on that mistake from Trump, which could cost him their frame now. As it stands, Selby's 35 points clear. Takes the red into the left middle, and a little bit of backspin applied on the cue ball once again to play for the black, to take it into the left corner for the first time in the frame. And of course, the further he gets into the break, the easier it's going to be there for him to actually control the cue ball and navigate his way through those reds in the way that is going to guarantee the positional play for him. And once again, you just have to go back to those misses from Chomp. Missing that red into the left corner wasn't the biggest of a problem there for himself, for the simple reason of he hasn't actually left anything for Selby at that stage, but missing that long red into the right corner certainly has gifted a nice little chance away to Selby. Now as he gets himself lined up for one more red to be taken into the right corner. So now 47 points is the advantage, 83 on the table. And of course, all of those 47 points are currently coming on the break from Mark Selby. Rolls the black into the left corner. And now 51 points of advantage. Still has 2 more easy reds for him to be taken. The first one is going to disappear into the left corner right now. And the second one, I think, can be taken into either one of the middle pockets to try and be potted before he has to try and do something about the two reds that have gone quite close towards the black ball or the left and right cushion. And yeah, in the end, it's a decent shot there once again with a screw back from Selby, because he's going to have him positioned on the black on the next occasion. So now 59 points is the advantage. So 60 points for this red with 67 on the table. So take the black and this red and you're going to be 67 points ahead with 67 on the table. So basically just allowing Trump to force a respawn at that time of asking. As he has, yes, GG's, well, yeah. Doesn't look to be the case for now though. He still needs to find one more red. And is he going to try and cannon the cue ball in towards that red off the black ball cushion? Or he's going to try and find one to get in behind for the right middle to be played. Lovely little shot once again, executed perfectly there by Selby. Now the frame ball for it to be certainly 3 frames each going into frame number 7, and nothing to separate the two players as we head into the deciding parts of the first session. Rolls the red in nicely, the crowd acknowledging that with the round of applause. Now take the pink into the left corner to ensure that Trump ain't going to be coming back to the table, and he won't. So the break of 77 points and counting there for Selby. Certainly very much a high scoring final that we're witnessing so far. I think we have seen a break of 50 plus in each of the frames up to this point. And Selby making one more on this occasion with a break of 78 points. And as he manages to roll the red, still going to be counting now for the century break to be very much possible there for us to be taking into the frame number 7, with it being 2 century breaks each. 2 by Trump and looking to be 2 by Selby right now if he is to take that red away from the black ball cushion and get himself off into 100 club for the second time in this final. 84 points now for Selby. Get himself lined up for the black to be taken into the left corner pocket, and this is probably the chance there for him to cannon the cue ball into that lonely red. He clearly doesn't feel like that's the case, but he's going to be 1 point short of that red for a century break, and you know, if he manages to roll this red with the black, it's going to be 99 points of a break. So still needs that red to be played. Maybe just wants to roll this one in along the cushion and not really worry about the position on the next colour. That's also another solution for you. And I think he's played it with a bit more power than he would have liked there on the cue ball. But I still think he's going to be alright for the red to just be dropped in to the right corner. And the break of 100 points certainly will see him over the line and into that century club once again. And yeah, unlucky. And tried to push the table for the red to drop in, but ultimately it is going to be 99 points of a break there for Selby. That gets himself into a level playing field zone once again there with Judd. And it is now Mark Selby 3, Judd 3. Mini comeback is completed by Selby. So let's see the way that this opening session is going to end. Is it going to be a draw, or is it going to be one of the players taking the last 2 frames and getting themselves a nice little cushion of 2 frames hanging into session number 2, which is going to start less than 4 hours from now on. Of course, we haven't even finished the opening one yet, with it being well, less than 2 hours for now, and you know, two more frames for us to be playing. So that's actually has gone quite quickly, especially with the opening 4 frames taking pretty much an hour before we head in towards the intermission break of 15 minutes. But now you have to say that Trump has been a bit passive in the last couple of frames. You know, he hasn't really been playing that well, producing the break of 3 points after a chance that, you know, could have actually been quite dangerous there for him, you would have thought. Missing that red into the left corner and then going for the long shot into the opposite side of the right corner instead, leaving that red on for Selby, and what followed was a break of 99 points there for him. Strange no high break prize. I don't think so. And as I said, I think it's going to be very much for the fact of Champion of Champions. It's not really a ranking event, so even though he will, of course, have prize money to his name, but I think it's going to be a bit of a different format this time around. And if you have a look at it, of course, it is... let me just have a look to double check for that. It is going to be 100,000, 150,000 for the winner to receive. Runner-up is going to get 60,000, of course. No, not giving any prize this tournament. Yeah, I think they are giving the sort of they're giving money to the winners, but ultimately it ain't going to be the high break value prize. So the group semi-final is going to be 12,500. Then the group runner-up is going to be 17,500. Semi-final is going to be 30,000. Runner-up 60,000, and winner is going to be 150,000. So certainly not going to get one for the highest break of the match achieved. And now Chomp gets himself over the line and gets the frame number 7 underway. Nearly dropped the cue ball, very close towards the yellow pocket. And this time around, it's going to be Selby's first shot to try and take right into the left corner or towards. And yeah, break 150,000 for the winner. Still quite nice out there because of how short the tournament actually is. And even for Selby's point of view, 60,000 points of 1,000 prize money ain't going to be too bad there for him going into the Riyadh season. And of course, trying to go for that $1 million of a break. I mean, if you do that in a single frame, of course, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous for the way off. You know, if you're going to get that frame for you to last 15 minutes or so, and you're going to get $1 million in it, it's going to be incredible for the money that you're actually going to earn per minute and even per second at that stage. Once again, lovely little shot from Chomp to force a safety for Selby to be such more difficult than he would have been on the previous occasion. Massive money, but nearly impossible to do. Yeah, I think Higgins got quite close to it on a couple of seasons ago. Probably was the closest of the two, and it is nearly impossible to do, but you know, the hype is there. I think the players will be up for it. We have seen a bit of a drought now in this stage of the season where we haven't seen actually those many 147s being made. And Selby gets a bit lucky with this one. Gets a little cannon off the brown to hand the cue ball in behind the green. And ultimately leaving that chance closed off there by Chomp. Judd will have a look to see if he's going to have enough reds to try and see the edge off on the left-hand side. Or indeed he'll be forced to try and get the cue ball to be played onto the top part of the table. And, well, just cannon the cue ball in towards the main bunch of reds. There's going to be a chance there taken, but probably he's going to be a risky shot there for Chomp to take on because of the number of reds that you're going to have on the lower part of the table, all of them positioned closely to the right corner. Let's see if he's going to be able to get through to this red, though. I thought Selby's managed to cover it up, and, I mean, still not going to get a confirmation that Chomp could have seen that red enough in the way that he was able to drop it into the right corner. But instead, he's going to give a chance away to Selby, not for the first time in the recent couple of frames. And Selby is going to be very quick off his seat to try and take this chance away from Judd Chomp once again and get himself another break started. Yes, there was loads of maximal start season. Want to be soon. Yeah, as I say, and what a way to do that in Saudi Arabia for the Riyadh season. You know, you can try and do that for the massive prize money. Of course, you can still have a normal 147. But that golden ball and a 167 of a break is going to be a bit of a difference maker for you. And Selby having a look to see if he's going to be able to get through to this red into the right corner. I thought it was possible, but him having such a long hesitation probably suggests that that's not going to be the case. And so once again, just checking to see if he's going to have a wide room there for the cue ball to be sent on towards the top part of the table. Probably not on this occasion, and therefore has to do it off the cushion. It being the left-hand side of the table, being his prime objective now. More than a minute taken on the shot already by Selby. So let's see what his plan is going to be. Seems to change their mind once again here. And I mean, the red that I actually thought was available to him in the right corner, it does seem to be in the way of another one. So ultimately, not going to have any one of those two available to Selby to try and take. And therefore, has to take the cue ball off into the red and try and play the cue ball off into the green pocket quite nicely. And I think he managed to achieve the desired outcome there for him. So Trump is going to try and have that red eliminated into the right corner now. he's going to be able to get through for a gap with the cue ball. Of course, he does want to be up and running desperately here, but he's going to be quite way back now of making the red into the right corner. And ultimately, once again, back to the safety we go. Selby's going to be able to have a couple of those reds lined up into the same pocket, but ultimately, with the way the cue ball is finished up here, don't really think he's going to have the angle on the white to try and have that one accelerated for the pink or blue to be taken. So let's see what's going to happen for Selby's point of view right now. Maybe he's going to be able to take the white into that zone of the right hand side of the table and get it in towards the brown and yellow. And he's tried to do that, but in the end he's going to have the yellow to be on the left hand side of the cue ball and the brown on the right hand side. And there is a gap in between those two for Chomp to still see the majority of those reds to try and send the cue ball on for the lower part of the table. But I think the pursuit for an attacking shot probably is going to end here. Unless Chomp can see enough of that red on the left hand side. Probably not on this occasion. And I mean, he didn't really play the shot too well because he has kind of the red onto the top part of the table, but it's kind of in the way that he's still going to be with the wrong side and position with the wrong side of the cue ball, with the white positioning actually being quite nice there from Chomp's point of view. And back to safety goes there for Selby, although he isn't looking for one long shot to be taken into the left corner this time around. So maybe he's going to be able to go for the red and try and actually eliminate that one off into the left corner. I mean, another option is going to be taking the red along the corridor, the one that Chomp has actually left it onto the top part of the table, setting it to the left-hand rail and get the cue ball guided into the top part of the table once again. So let's see the approach that Selby is going to try and take. And yeah, he hasn't played the shot well at all because he was trying to cannon the cue ball off into the red. And I mean, he got a nice little cannon on the cue ball, but he clearly feels like that wasn't planning and that wasn't a part of the plan. And a little bit of a reaction there from the body language, clearly suggesting that that wasn't the case and that wasn't really the plan there for him, because it has turned into a nasty snooker that he has laid on Chomp. And ultimately, the momentum and the trajectory that Selby's taking right now does seem to be against Chomp here. Let's see if Chomp is going to be able to get himself out of this position. And of course, if that is to be the case, is he going to give another chance away to Selby to try and be taken? I think let's see where the perfect cue ball placement might be here this time around. So certainly might take a bit of time there for him to establish that position and play the shot with the cue ball to try and send it to the lower part of the table. Still does seem like he has gone for a shot very quickly indeed, and not going to reach it on the first time of asking. So 4 points given away to Selby. I think Selby will try and exploit that red to be played along the cushion into the right corner. Let's see if he's going to be able to get through to this one. Having a look to see if he's going to have anything to the right middle instead. Not going to be the case, and therefore it is going to be attempt number 2 for Judd to try and exploit that chance. And I mean, if you played that shot with a bit more power, you would have been absolutely fine. So that's going to be the adjustment made. I think the cue ball has to be a bit more towards the left-hand side. And yeah, Chomp is just checking that. I think the cue ball has to be a bit further away. And Chomp is just requesting that the assistant referee help us to get the cue ball into the same zone. So just getting up the screen to see what the shot was previously. And top ref today, yes, Diana Wollaston does seem to be one of the best referees in the game, especially in the recent years. On the likes of Matt O'Keefe, that is currently the video assistant referee, and the likes of the other referees here. But I mean, the approach that Trump has taken now, he's probably played an exactly identical shot. And yeah, I mean, still on the run for this one. Ben's wife, yes. I like your choice of words. Thank you, Stephen. Not sure if you are trying to take the mick out of it, but anyway, thank you. Let's see if Selby's going to have this red available into the right corner. And don't think that's the case there, because as I say, an absolute carbon copy of the shot that Chomp has played on the previous occasion. So it's just going to be one more chance. Yeah, I remember actually, because I think, wasn't it Ben when he got into the quarterfinal of the World Championship, which of course was supposed to be officiated by his wife previously, but of course you can't have that for the most beautiful reason, because of her husband actually participating in that quarterfinal stage last season. And Chomp getting ever closer, and I'm not too sure if he has managed to hit this one. The fact the camera is on him probably suggests that that wasn't the case. And attempt number 4 coming up. Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, as I say, it ain't going to matter anyway. It's all a bit of fun anyway. Attempt number 4 now. Chomp has to be careful with, giving 60 points or so away. As still doesn't seem like he's going to have a lot more pace on the cue ball. And try and roll the white towards the red. I mean, he's playing all sorts of shot selection, but I think he's managed to catch this one this time around. And he was trying to play it with just as minimal sort of lack of power as possible. And in the end, it worked out for him quite nicely. Now, see if we're going to have Selby to run the cue ball onto the left-hand rail. And now he's just going to try and have a little bit of the cannon onto the red. And ultimately, he's going to give a touch and ball away. So let's see what Chomp is going to do, because he ain't going to have ability of trying to send the cue ball to the top part of the table for 2 reds being quite close next to each other and playable into right middle or left middle at that time. So just, yeah, I mean, I say just, it's not really easy for him, even though it is the touch and ball, to find a perfect way to send the cue ball off into the top part of the table. So just maybe playing the cue ball right into a mix of reds and trying to get underneath those. And I think Selby's trying to exploit now the chance. Chomp had a look at him as if to say, maybe we're going to have a re-rack this time around a lot sooner than the one that we've had in the 4th rain that we're debating quite quickly over. In the end, it was Selby that, after a very lengthy safety battle, got himself a chance, but didn't manage to take the long shot. And Chomp was able to exploit that chance and get himself a break of 73 points or so. Now, Judd once again looking to send the cue ball onto the top part of the table if he wants to find a gap. I mean, it says, and he does seem to take this one with a bit more power. And yeah, he does seem to be taking a bit more risks there, Chomp, unlike Selby. And ultimately, I don't think him taking all of those risks is going to get him into a nice little position now, because he has played the cue ball onto the top part of the table and he has finished in a straight line for any of those reds to be taken. But ultimately, I still think he's going to be able to get that red further closer to the blue onto the right middle pocket. And forgot about Steven is still trying to go into that. But yeah, listen, I think Selby can take this red into the right middle. And I think that's exactly the thing that he's debating with himself. But the word can doesn't really mean that he has to go for it. And of course, another approach is going to be just trying to get the cue ball to be played into the red and try and get the white in behind the green or brown or any sort of colours in the way. And I think Selby has done a really good job of trying to get those reds to spread out, but he's cannoned one of those reds towards the black, which is going to put black and pink out of position as it stands. So could be in here for a very lengthy frame now. Time since last walk is approaching 15 minutes now for frame number 7. And yeah, Chompy's looking to go for the red into the right middle potentially. And yeah, I think in the end he's trying to go for just sending that red into the main pack of those. Maybe trying to get the pink to be sort of freed up from captivity and have that one to be available to try and have a break builder from towards. And anyway, it's actually kind of the cue ball quite nicely on towards the ball cushion. So let's see if Selby's going to be able to do a similar sort of thing now. I wonder how many people now think Selby can win. Well, 33% have gone for Chomp not to win the opening session. 7% for the draw and 26% for Mark Selby. So I don't think that he's going to be easy for Selby to win, but I'd say he's going to be the favourite in my eyes for the simple reason of he's managed to take the last 2 frames, and right now we're just entering that zone where Selby does seem like he's usually thrives in those sort of battles of safety play. And, you know, he comes into this frame with a bit of momentum. And now Chum finds himself in his own world. So let's see what the response from Selby is actually going to be here. And, well, he's played a risky shot there because even though he is going to force Chum to go the long way around for the cue ball to be safe, he has left the red potentially on for the right corner to be played. So let's see what Judd is going to try and do. Of course, black and pink remain to be unavailable as it stands. And I think there's going to be 1 red there for Chum to guide that red into the right corner. And still going to have the cue ball position nicely for the top part of the table. Not on this occasion though, so still Chum is unable to get his first spot. Very much like he feels like since the start of that frame number 6. And Selby's going to be, of course, realising that. And when he goes for a long shot himself, that might be a bit of a confidence boost when you have that negative energy of your opponent to turn into a positive energy for yourself. Let's see if he's going to go for this long red. He will. He's going to be able to pot this one in. And let's see what the jaw of the cue ball he's going to lead him on towards. He's going to lead him perfectly on towards the green to be taken. Now, Chum says losing doesn't hurt as much these days. I mean, that's wrong mentality, to be honest. I haven't really heard that, but don't really heard any world number 1 in any sport tell me that, you know, losing doesn't really hurt him. It should hurt you because that's the hunger, that's the motivation for the game. I mean, yes, you can talk about discipline and some players don't actually need motivation, but I mean, I don't really understand that point from Chum because if you're not motivated to win and it doesn't hurt you to lose, then I think you're in the wrong sport. And yeah, I don't really understand that comment. It doesn't hurt that much. Why? Selby's in my eyes favourite. Yeah, I think he will be. Now he's on the break here. Has 16 points advantage to his name. Interview with Hendry and rounds off the semi. Yeah, I want to look at that one a bit later on, but never understand that. I never really heard any player say that, you know, losing doesn't hurt that much. You're a competitive player. You're a professional player. You're in the competitive world of sports. Don't really understand that. Not for me. Now, Selby will be looking to go for the blue to be taken in towards the yellow pocket. And, of course, for blue to be respotted back on its original position is going to be quite a nice boost there for Selby. Fault, sorry. Okay. And about Selby being favourite. Yeah, I mean, Selby is going to be a favourite for me going into that frame anyway. But because we're entering that world of Mark Selby, it's going to be very interesting to see if he's going to be able to make this position the one that counts there for him. At least have that sort of 50 points on the board there. Of course, we're still yet to see Judd Chum back to his best after that intermission break, which has probably brought the best out of Selby, but not so much out of Chum there. If you don't win, you don't eat or pay your mortgage. Yeah, as I say, Lawrence, like, even if you forget about the professional and sporting point of view, and I think that's why any one of these players is actually here. They're here to win. Of course, they enjoy playing snooker, but, you know, if you're going to play snooker and lose, I don't think any one of them would like to compete on this tour. So, and of course, there is a financial point which comes into it anyway. If you don't win, you don't get the prize money, and you don't get invited into bigger events, and therefore you're going to be compromising that as well. Now, once again, a rest shot for Selby to try and keep that perfect record of 27 out of 27. As he rolls the red in nicely and gets the cue ball position for the ball colours hopefully there for himself, but I think ultimately he's going to be a bit awkward on trying to go for that brown to be taken into the yellow pocket. So let's see if Selby's going to be able to try and exploit this one away and have the brown to disappear into the yellow pocket this time around. So play this one with a bit of power and traction. Does need an extension, it would seem, at this stage. Well, 27 and missed. Great. I think I've actually done my math wrong. I think it's 28 there because I think the previous shot on the blue was with the rest as well. So 28 out of 28. And the stat that we've seen from Judd is probably going to be 11 out of 13, if that remains to be the case. Now, another important shot for Selby. Trying to get the cue ball onto the lower part of the table. And getting the brown in the meantime. Off into the yellow pocket. Plays the shot really nicely, to be fair. Now, 27 points is the advantage, so trying to make the most out of this position. Still has to do the majority of the damage with the blue. Having the ball colours on their spots is going to be a bonus if he overplays for the blue at this stage. But still would like to have at least either one of pink or black available to his name. Although, I mean, if you're going to have black available at this stage, it ain't going to do a lot of good to you. For the simple reason of the black spot being covered up by majority of those reds. And yeah, it does look like the break of 16 points is going to be the maximum that Selby can produce. It was very difficult for him anyway, for the simple reason of the way the position was set up for him to try and make a break out of. And let's see which colour he's going to choose to play a safety shot from. Realistically, the only shot that he could take is going to be the blue there into the green pocket, but I don't think that's going to be Mark Selby's shot to take on. And probably just going to push the yellow onto the left-hand rail. I'll just have that cue ball to be played onto the ball cushion. Played the shot nicely, to be fair. Still think that both yellow and green are going to be potable into the green pocket as it stands. And the break, of course, will end here for Mark Selby. So 16 points scored, and back to the table steps Judd to try and see if he's going to have any reds possible to his own. Don't think that's going to be the case right now because, you know, for him to take this red into the left corner, you don't really need the black to be there right now as it stands. So maybe he's going to be trying to exploit that red into the right corner, and he has tried to do it. In the end, didn't really manage to succeed in that attempt, but still had a lovely little control of the cue ball to make sure he was there or thereabout in the green spot. And right-hand side of the table is going to be the only one that Mark Selby has got available to himself, but ultimately it's probably the only part of the table that he needs to play a decent safety shot now against Judd to try and take it. So just rolls the red in towards the left corner pocket and cannons the cue ball in towards the brown. So still a nice little shot there by Selby, because if he gets the majority of those reds closer to the black of the left corner pocket of the table as it stands, it's just going to force Judd to be playing all those safety shots in the hands of Selby, and once again end up in his own world. Very thin cut on the edge there from Judd, and he's going to have the cue ball to disappear into the yellow pocket. Ultimately, let's see if that's going to give anything of an advantage there for Mark Selby, if he's going to have a ball in hand, a long shot to be taken into the left corner. Don't think he's going to have anything into the right part of the table. So, don't think he's going to give the position away either to Judd, with him having ability to place that cue ball anywhere within the D zone. And once again, Selby just looking to exploit that red to be taken into the left corner. As I say, if there is going to be a gap to try and find the cue ball to lead it onto the top part of the table, I still think that Selby's going to try and exploit this one. Long frame this one then, it will be. But as I say, when you get to that bit of a squeaky bum time and just a bit of a late showdown on the final, especially if it features Mark Selby, you can expect that to be the case. As yeah, Selby, you thought like he was trying to free up the pink from the captivity of the red, but instead he's pushed it over the left corner pocket closer to the black, so he ain't going to put his chances of either one of the players getting himself a nice frame chance here. And the break that is actually going to get either Chomp or Selby over the line here. And Chomp is desperately trying to exploit that red into either left or right corner. And this time around, he's going to be successful. So let's see what the approach is going to be taken here by Judd. Is he going to try and roll the brown in? Or is he going to be taking the sort of conservative option and just trying to roll the cue ball in behind the brown for himself? Has gone for the approach of snookering Mark Selby. So 31 points now in between those two players. And Selby having a look to see if he's going to have the cue ball to be sent from the right-hand side of the table. Of course, there was a lovely little shot there by Trump, which is going to put Selby under some sort of scrutiny now. And the grade of that is going to be dependent on the fact that Selby's going to try and approach this shot here. And as I say, it's still very interesting for us to actually witness the trajectory that Selby's going to have to take on, because he ain't going to be able to do it from a 1 or 2 cushion escape, I'll tell you that for free. Realistically, trying to send the cue ball onto the bowl cushion first, then left-hand rail, then the right-hand rail, and then realistically just try and cannon the cue ball into one of those reds on the right-hand side of the table there, by the right corner pocket. Let's see if he's going to take a couple of attempts there for him. The first one does seem to be quite nice there, and in the end doesn't really want to have that red available to Chom to be taken. And yeah, I think in the end, if the black is on its spot, Chom's take this one and says, thank you very much, Mark. Don't think that will be the case, and he'll ask Selby to have that attempt taken once again. And yeah, so just have the cue ball to be respotted in behind the brown. So Selby just making sure that the cue ball is going to be in the perfect situation. And yeah, Selby just asking for a bit more of a change to be made on the cue ball. And, well, the assistant referee saying that is going to be very much a minor detail, but ultimately it ain't going to be too much of a thing to change. Yep, Selby does seem to end up being quite happy with it at the end, so he's going to go with attempt number 2 now, trying to get himself out of this snooker situation. And, of course, the first one was decent, and in the end, the second one does seem like going to be even closer towards the red. And is he going to catch the other one? He will. Now let's see if Chomp is going to go for this red into the right corner, which he has refused previously for the simple reason of not having enough angle to try and get that red into the corner and still have the cue ball to be lined up for the next colour. It doesn't seem to go that way either right now, and just try and send the cue ball for the top part of the table, but ain't going to play the shot too well. Going to catch the blue with the white, and ultimately it is going to be a chance given away here to Selby to try and take the red himself into the right corner. Bit of a mid-range shot this time around, and Selby just having a look to see if he's going to have that red available for himself to try and take it into the right corner. And once again just looking to see where he's going to get that corridor for the white to get onto the bulk area as it stands, because that's exactly where the blue has gone. Black and pink still out of position, so for you to continue the break after this red, you have to make sure the cue ball is going to travel quite a long distance out there for yourself. And ooh, I think he's gone for the more difficult of the red to try and ensure the traction on the cue ball was going to lead the white onto the top part of the table, but instead he's going to leave that red over the corner pocket for Chomp to take. Let's see if Judd is going to be able to find the gap to guide the cue ball onto the top part of the table and accelerate himself off into some chance of a break building stuff that we haven't really seen ever since that interval from Judd Chomp. He's tried to cannon the pink into play, and ultimately I don't think it's going to be a nice short selection right now, because I think this pink is going to be covered up by the red into the right corner, and ultimately it is going to be one more safety shot to be played there from Chomp's point of view. Probably was the right shot to be taken there for him, but not on this occasion. And Chomp is just going to choose from either blue or brown, you would think, and roll the cue ball in behind the other one. So if he's going to be the brown to take on, he's going to try and leave the cue ball in behind the blue. And I mean, he still played the shot pretty nicely, leaving the cue ball perfectly positioned on the ball cushion. And in the end, it is going to be Selby to try and exploit the left-hand side of the table. Don't think he's going to be able to get through to the thin edge of that red on the left-hand side of it. And ultimately, just has to try and roll up to the reds onto the lower part of the table. But easier said than done. If you're going to try and do it to the one that's closest to the black, you're going to get the black into availability, which is going to mean that the next chance for either Selby or Chomp is going to be very much the one that you would expect one of the players to take and get themselves a 4-3 lead ahead of the last frame of the first session. Selby still doesn't look like he's got an idea in his mind which is going to get him out of trouble. So 2 cushion escape trying to clip the edge of the red, which is currently closest to the cue ball. So let's see, 1-2 cushion. And it's very close to that red, but ultimately going to miss it. So 4 points given away to Chomp. And he's going to ask Selby to play this one once again. And once again, just the cue ball has to be respotted onto the previous position. And yeah, Selby just making some more adjustments to it. So 30 minutes, by the way, that the frame number 7 has been going on for, and attempt number 2 coming up for Mark Selby's point of view. Let's see if he's going to be able to get closer to the red, but of course doesn't want to get too close and hit the red pretty much full ball. And I think is the case there for him. He's going to have that red available for Chomp to be taken into the left middle, and ultimately, let's see if Chomp can get hold of that pink to try and play it into the left middle or the left corner there for himself. And is it a foul and a miss? It is a foul and a miss, but this time around he ain't going to be a miss here because Chomp is going to take the position from here and try and get himself off into the pink here. And well, a bit of a hit and hope shot once again, and I mean, he hasn't actually played the shot too badly from the hit and hope perspective. Seeing the funny side of it there, Judd. But ultimately, he's managed to get the black closer to the pocket, but still not going to be able to pot this one, of course. So once again, 1 red taken and 1 point taken. And it is going to be just a colour to choose from for him to play a safety shot right now. So just having a look to see if he's going to be able to reach the yellow, or he's going to be able to do it off the brown. Try and roll the cue ball on towards that one. And once again have the safety play to be set up in between Mark Selby and Judd Chomp right here, right now. So Selby just looking to exploit a couple of more reds available to him into the left corner to try and be played. Don't think he's going to try and do it off the attacking approach. As I say, you still have 91 points on the table, which is going to mean that we've got sort of 8 reds on the table as it stands. And Selby doesn't see anything on the right-hand side of the table, so he can try and exploit the reds on the left part of it. And yeah, doesn't seem to have an idea on his mind right now. In hope they associate that shot with Stephen Maguire because he did that once. I remember that. Yeah, I think Stephen is one of those players that still does it right now to this day. And remember, it's actually probably was the shot that actually got him over the line against Karen Wilson in the International Championship. Ultimately was the way for him to get onto that semi-final clash with John Higgins. After he fluked the red and managed to clear up the table from there and defeat Wilson by a scoreline of 6-4. First effort doesn't seem to be too good there from Selby, and is he going to give a free ball away? Not on this occasion. So once again, 4 points given away to Chomp, and attempt number 2 coming up. Yeah, Stephen, they call that shot a Maguire. Well, that's why they call him a Maverick. He certainly ain't going to be wasting any time of any one of the players. He's going to try and go for it right there, right now. And I think there's a couple of players like that which don't really have the patience to try and be going for all the safety shots and trying to be careful with those. You can see once again on the replay, cue ball has gone exactly in between all sorts of gaps there, in between the reds. And now Selby can try and do a similar sort of thing once again. So let's see if attempt number 2 is going to be closer there for Mark. It was closer, but not quite going to be close enough there for him. And yeah, all those reds are going to be covered up onto the left corner for Chomp to try and exploit. And it is going to be one more effort there from Mark Selby's point of view. Once again, 4 points given away to Chomp. And of course, out of those 51 points scored, I think the majority, sort of 40 points or so, have been given away to players for the foul points and the foul shots previously. And I mean, let's see if he's going to be warned here right now, because I think he can technically see a red into the left corner. And third attempt, I mean, it's a very interesting one, because technically he can't see enough of the full ball of that red. So he's going to be warned now. He can't afford to miss a red one more time. And, I mean, that's just going to take a bit more time on the approach now for him, because he wants to make sure he actually hits the red this time around, but also doesn't give anything easy away to Chomp for him to get the break started on the frame number 7. Maguire, not a bad player, didn't win many titles, but he has a few ranking titles to his name. I think he won one this year, which is why he actually was at the Champion of Champions against Mark Selby in the opening round. I think it was the Championship League where he managed to win. Was it not Selby that he actually managed to beat in the final, by the way? I am getting Selby's name on the Championship League. I know he was the winner of a couple of years previously. Now let's see what the hidden hope shot is going to come from Mark Selby to. Ooh, it's not going to be too nice there for him, but ultimately he's going to have a couple of reds covered up by the pink and black here. So he's going to push the red over the right middle here for Judd to try and exploit. Let's see what Chomp is going to try and do himself. He's not a prolific winner like Robertson or Sullivan, but Maguire's a decent player. Yeah, as I say, he's certainly one of the players that on his day he can beat anyone, but also when he's not his day he can lose to anyone. Just he's a good player, that Maguire, and also has been in the game for a reasonable amount of time. Now let's see what Chomp is going to be able to do with this red to try and take it into the right middle. Get the cue ball to be lined up for the top part of the table. Maybe take the brown out of the green pocket and send the cue ball back down the table once again. Great cue action, yeah, from Maguire's point of view. I mean, there was one more shot that he managed to take in the International Championship, which personally for me was a shot of the tournament for the cue action that he's managed to get on that shot. Absolutely incredible there for him. Right then, let's see what Chomp is going to be able to have himself lined up on. He's got a red available to take into the right middle if he wants to get sort of onto that red, but ultimately he has got so much distance to try and cover with the cue ball. I think the easier approach is going to try and take that red into the right corner, but as I say, easier said than done. And he was aiming for the reds to be taken into the left corner of the table. Still has himself lined up for the red into the left middle for a backup option. And Mark Cullen been poor lately by standards? Nah, not really. Managed to get the English Open crown. Managed to reach the Belfast semi-final. Lost out to Judd Chomp on that occasion. And, I still think Alan has been there or thereabouts. Don't think he qualified for the International Championship, which was the reason that he's missed that tournament. And he's going to be back. I think he's going to be back in the Riyadh season. He wasn't in the Champion of Champions for too much of a time because Zhao Xingtong managed to eliminate him quite quickly out there. And now Chomp is trying to get the blue back on his spot. The player Mark King got banned, didn't he, for match fixing his match against Joe Perry? Yes, he did. In 2023, where he lost out, I think it was Home Nation Series, where he lost out by a scoreline of 4-0. And in the end, Chomp was trying to get the cue ball on for the lower part of the table and the long way around. But even though he managed to get the blue in, he also dropped the cue ball. So it is going to be the break of 6 points to be ended. And 5 points to go the way of Mark Selby here. So once again, it doesn't look like we're going to get anywhere with this frame actually coming to an end. Don't think we're going to be in that zone where this is going to be the last frame of the session. But ultimately, if he kills on like that, and of course we can't go on forever for the opening session. Selby just pushing one more red towards that cluster of 2 reds and a pink and a black at this stage. Chomp is having a look to see if he's going to be able to get that red away into that corner pocket and maybe push that red on towards the pink, which ultimately will push one more red into the left corner and try and drop that one in. Of course, Chomp will be more eager than Selby to try and get this frame over and done with as quickly as he can, while still, of course, trying to maximise his chances of actually taking the frame on the board. Now just having a look to see if he's going to have that plant for the pink and red available into the left corner to try and take it. Don't think that's going to be the case there for him, because I think the black is going to be in the way. Otherwise, Selby or Chomp would have attempted that previously. Yeah, Chomp has gone for it, to be fair, and it's a decent effort with a cue ball. Oh, he's going to be in behind the brown nicely now. Let's see what Selby's going to be able to do here. Because even though he hasn't managed to drop the red in, he's going to have Mark Selby into a little bit of trouble here. Trying to see if he's going to have the left-hand side available for him to try and exploit. Just roll up to those reds probably isn't going to be a solution, because of a couple of those reds being available into the right middle to try and be played. Frame time has gone over 40 minutes, and still, as it stands, no real confirmation that it's not going to be one more, an hour-long frame, which is going to feature Mark Selby in it. After the one there. Of course, it was frame number 7, by the way, yesterday against Neil Robertson, and this time around it is going to be frame number 7 against Judd Chomp here. So decent effort there from Selby, but I think this time around it is going to be 4 points given away to Judd Chomp, and he's going to have the cue ball to be respotted back on its original position. So once again, having that white to be placed onto that part of the table and in behind the brown. So just looking to see if Selby's going to go for the same approach, or he's going to try and change things up here. And I think he is going to try and go for the same right-hand side of the table to try and send the cue ball on towards. Cannon into the red with a bit more traction this time around. And let's see if Chomp is going to try and take this one away from Selby and play a red along the cushion, get himself a point on the board, and ultimately give himself a better chance of playing a safety shot from. I think he will take the red on, to be fair. And it's just a question of whether he's going to try and attempt to play the shot for the pink. I mean, he's trying to be a bit clever there, Chomp, because he tried to basically play an in-off shot with the red of using the main pack of reds and the black to his advantage to just try and drop the red in to the left corner. Instead, he's played it with too much power and didn't play that one with enough accuracy. And he's going to force Mark Selby. Well, could have actually left him on with an easy shot to start the break off. In the end, there's going to be one more safety shot to be played from Mark Selby's point of view. Try and get that red closer to the left middle pocket. And maybe roll it in towards the yellow pocket as plan B option. And ultimately, he just tries to take that red in towards the left-hand cushion here, Mark Selby. So, Chomp once again steps up to the table. And I think Selby was trying to make sure he's going to have the blue in the way of that red, to make sure that Chomp wasn't going to be tempted to take that red into the left corner. Instead, Chomp has played a cushion first shot in towards the same red. And now, let's see what Selby's going to be able to perform himself. Pushing reds onto the left-hand side of the table. Probably is going to be a solution there for him, but maybe, I mean, just having a look to see if the same red that Chomp has cannoned the cue ball in towards is going to be playable there for Selby. Because if it is, it's going to be a nice little chance there for Mark to get himself started with this break. Of course, try and play the cue ball for the blue, and he takes this one in. So once again, it's the first spot in a while that we've seen Stephen Maguire beat Joel Connor in League Championship final to qualify. Thank you very much. Yes, I don't know why I thought it was Mark Selby, but I think it probably was because Selby won the Championship League last season. That's probably why. Now, let's see what Selby is going to be able to produce right here, right now, with the shot of the blue. Taken into the right middle. Didn't Perry get slapped as well? I don't think he did, because I would have heard about that one, but he wasn't really playing that well, because I remember watching that match back, and Perry wasn't playing well either, but he has managed to win that match against King by a scoreline of 4-0, and a lovely little play there by Selby to get himself lined up for right into the left corner. Once again, has to make sure he's going to get a lot of traction on the cue ball to try and have that shot set up for the blue to be taken. So let's see what's going to be happening right now on the snooker table. Is he going to try and develop a black here, or try and send the cue ball on for the blue to be taken? And he has tried to play for the blue, but overrun with the cue ball this time around. So let's see if he's going to go for the ball colours, or indeed he's going to try and take the blue into the right middle this time around. So 15 points is the advantage, still 59 points on the table. And Selby wanted to go for the blue first, but then decided to have one more look at the ball colours. And in the end, it does look like he is going to go for the green to be taken into its own pocket. And try and have all the distance put in between the cue ball and the top part of the table. Try and get as close as he possibly can to those reds on the lower part of it. As Selby is still chasing that third frame on the bounce win. Getting to see if he's going to be able to guide that red into the left corner. And ultimately doesn't seem to be too happy with that. Maybe he's not going to be able to get past the black with a straightforward shot, so has to play closer to the front end jaw. And right now he is going to have an attempt of taking this red. And with a bit of a help from the black there, he manages to get this one in nicely. And now surely it is going to be a frame taken by Selby, because he managed to get the black into play as well. I mean, maybe that was an intentional shot there from Selby to try and take. And either way, it ain't going to matter massively as he pushes one red towards the open play out there. So he can take this one right now into the right middle. But ultimately, 26 points of advantage now. It takes two reds out of the game, and he'll be able to get himself a 4-3 of an advantage. As I say, winning 3 frames on the bounce and getting us set up for the last frame of the session to be played. GG's frame. Yeah, it does seem like that way. So Selby, I think he still needs 3 more shots there for him to be played. Maybe 4 of there, to be fair. And he doesn't seem to be too sort of keen on taking a rare shot here because of a weird spider placement. And yeah, in fact, he has changed the reds for a spider this time around, so has to go over the red this time and try and take all the pace away from the cue ball. Get himself lined up for the black to be taken. And I mean, he can go for the blue if he wants to, but I wouldn't really understand why he would want to do that. I mean, he has gone for the blue, and as I say, hasn't played the shot well at all. And unless he's got green available to himself, I don't really understand the short and the idea behind that short selection. Because he's not going to have that blue to be taken into the left middle because it's covered up by the red. And ultimately, he's still not over the line in this frame just yet, with him trying to take the green into his own pocket as being one of his options to try and hold on to the break. As I say, it's very much touch and go there, with green being close to the yellow in terms of trying to get over the line and slip in towards his own pocket. He manages to roll this one in, so let's see where the cue ball's going to finish. And he's going to finish just about on the lower part of the table, so one more rest shot for Selby to be taken to get himself 31 points clear with 35 points on the table. Selby become best rest player ever. Well, I mean, he has, if you talk about the rest shots taken, still yet to miss one, but he's going to take one more now with the red into the left corner. Now let's see if he's going to be able to set himself up for a shot at the black into the left corner pocket this time around. And plays the shot quite nicely there, to be fair. Gets a nice little traction on the black. Doesn't want to be straight on this one, of course, for him to continue the break and ensure he's going to be over the line and sort of guarantee himself a 4-3 of a gap to try and carry over into the last frame of the session. And has tried to get the cue ball in behind that red. And to be fair to him, played really, really nicely that one. So 38 points is the difference, 35 remaining. So if Selby knocks the red in, certainly going to be heading into the last frame of the session. 3 on the bounce. It is certainly 3 on the bounce. So trying to go for a 5-3 lead for him to carry over into session number 2. Right now, the cue ball is going to be played for the black here and try and accelerate that one onto the top part of the table. Let's see if we're going to have the yellow to disappear as well. So, of course, it's a lovely little break of 38 points and counting. So we can still take it into one more 50-plus break of a points. I've seen that one in every single one of the previous 6 frames. Not quite on this occasion, though. as he rolls the yellow in and follows up by the green taken into the left middle. So needs brown and blue to be taken as well for it to be a 50 plus sort of a points of a break for Mark Selby. That ultimately is going to get him over the line here and ensure that he's not going to be trailing when he goes into that second session. And we're yet to find out if it is going to be a 5-3 advantage to Mark Selby, or is it going to be score draw with Judd Trump winning the last and the 8th frame as Selby just rolls the pink in. Is he going to go for the black here? He will. So Judd Trump is going to try and go for a little bit of a bathroom break there of his own, and Mark Selby is probably going to join him. It was a very lengthy frame there for him, but ultimately it's a lovely little execution from Mark Selby's point of view, and the break of 65 points is going to get him over the line. And now it is Mark Selby 4, Judd Trump 3. For the first time in this session, we're going to have Mark Selby leading Judd Trump by a scoreline of 4 frames to 3. So very much a quick break for the players, and then we'll resume the action for the 8th and probably the final frame. Sometimes you have 9 frames to be played in the opening session, as we have seen with Weezer against John Higgins in that opening session final in the International Championship. Let's see if that's going to be the case right now, or is it going to be the last frame for Judd Trump to try and break that little bit of a streak from Mark Selby's point of view and get himself off into a score draw going into session number 2. So once again, a very much important frame there for Selby to try and win, and he has managed to do it once again. 3 on the bounce, and for the first time in the entire match. You know, it was a 1-0, it was a 2-1, 3-1, 3-2 of a gap for Judd Trump. We've seen a draw of 3 frames each and 1 frames each, and in the end it is going to be Mark Selby leading the match for the first time here. Let's see if he's going to be able to build on that, or is he going to try and sort of sit back once again, try and exploit the little vulnerabilities in the defense of Judd Trump as he tries to get himself lined up for a 5-3 lead going into that session number 2. So just looking to see the players coming back onto the main table here. And of course, it was a very lengthy frame there, so you can understand both of them going for the bathroom break. Right now, let's see which way is it actually going to go there. For frame number 8. Let's get this one set up. And yeah, let's get this one started. Very much looking forward to see if it is going to be the announcement that, well, confirmation that it is going to be the last frame to be played in the session. And I think I've missed that one, so I think it is going to be the last frame of the session, to be fair, with it being the 8th one. And with the way the opening 7 ones have actually gone, with it being pretty much the 3-hour mark that we're approaching. And just waiting for the match to resume here, and the break-off shot to come from Mark Selby's point of view to give the turn back to Judd Trump. So a bit slow on the ITV right now as it stands. Of course, one of the only matches that is going to be streamed, and one of the only tournaments that is going to be streamed on the official TV, the Matchroom and ITV Sport providing the coverage for that. So just waiting on the confirmation for the match to resume. And there we go. So it is a shot by Selby, taken nicely. And it's one more. I wouldn't say it's a mistake there from Trump, but it's certainly not the shot that is going to get him into a nice little situation here. With Selby once again just playing the shot onto the top part of the table. And trying to have the white with all the distance in between the cubo and the target reds. So Trump is going to try and send that red onto the lower part of the table and in towards the left side of the pocket. And plays the shot quite nicely there with the cue ball control. Gives the turn back to Selby. Mark is going to try and exploit the chances that have been there for him on the majority of the match. And of course has managed to take, well, pretty much all of them, apart from maybe a couple of misses that we've seen in the opening part of it. And now once again Trump looking to see if he's going to go for the red, which Selby is going to leave there for him. if he is to misjudge a safety shot of his own. But for now, Selby looking to maybe pot the red into the left corner. I'll try and get the cue ball onto the lower part of the table. I mean, it does look like he has gone for an attacking approach, but he's missed the red by quite some margin there in terms of going for the potting angle, which probably is going to be a bit of a suggestion that he wasn't actually playing that shot. And yeah, Champion try and go for a safety shot himself. Try and get the pink away from the main pack of reds. And pushes one of those reds quite close towards the right corner pocket, but ultimately even closer to the right-hand rail. So once again, I think the last 3-4 frames have been quite slow from the get-go. And of course, that's going to benefit Selby. And from him winning 3 frames on the bounce, I think it is going to be very important for him to try and make that 4 out of 4. And a perfect start to the second session with a 5-3 of a lead to try and hold on to. But not going to play a nice safety right now. And he's going to leave, well, hopefully something there from Judd Chomp's point of view, because he has caused a double kiss on the way back of the cue ball as he was trying to send the cue ball onto the top part of the table. Let's see what Chomp can try and exploit now, with I think the plant of reds that he's got available to himself probably being the only option that Selby has left open there to him. And once again, Chomp looking to see if he's going to be able to go for the plant and try and take it finally, get himself underway here in this frame. He will. Certainly gets the red in. And the cue ball is going to travel on towards the bulk line into a safe area. And I mean, let's see if he's going to have himself lined up for the brown, with it being probably his only chance there that he's got. And the answer seems to be no at this stage. So just roll the cue ball in behind the yellow. And once again, go for a safety battle with Mark Selby. Although the first shot from Selby ain't going to be easy, for the simple reason of, he has to get himself out of a snooker situation. So I'm just looking to see if he's going to have the 2-cushion escape available to his name. Or he's going to have to go the long way around and try and send the cue ball from the right-hand rail and onto the lower part of the table. So Chomp has to wait patiently in his chair. And of course, there's no real chance that the first attempt is going to be successful there for Selby. But ultimately, he just has to make sure he's going to be able to judge this one well enough so that he doesn't leave anything easy away to Judd Chomp. And in the end, it's a decent effort there for him. But I still think that he's left an invitation away for the red to be taken in towards the green pocket. Let's see if Chomp is going to look at the red available into the left middle for him to be taken as well. Ultimately, I just think it's going to be one of those shots that, for him to be 4-3 down, Chomp is probably going to have to refuse it at this stage. And yeah, just try and send the red in towards the pink and to get the cue ball lined up for the top part of the table. So once again, back to the safety battle we go. Covering tonight, yeah, probably. Definitely should be the case there, unless, I don't know. Certainly he's in plans now, and I'll make that session available as soon as the first one finishes. And yeah, Selby's looking to try and have himself a 5-3 of a gap. Pizza ordered. Yeah, certainly. Well, enjoy it, as I say. And a little bit of food there for yourself. Going to watch the Sons of Lambs in a bit. Great. Absolutely good stuff for you there. And well, I'm going to try and watch the decider of the World Cup qualifiers for the football. But that's going to be yet to follow after this frame is going to finish. And Selby hasn't actually played a good safety shot out there. And he's going to have the cue ball very much close to that red for Chomp to take the target ball into the left middle. Let's see if he's going to be able to do that, though. The silence of the lambs. So Chomp is going to go for this red to be taken into the yellow pocket, but he's going to miss it, though. So still doesn't look like he's going to be up to speed just at this point. And Selby has got a similar shot as an invitation there for himself to try and take into the yellow pocket. So now let's see if we're going to have the same approach taken by Selby, or is he going to take another safety shot approach and try and get the cue ball lined up for the safe manner there for him. So as he rolls the cue ball on for the shot off the red. And I mean, just having a look to see if he's going to have the red available for him to be lined up for the green pocket. In the end, whatever it was, he certainly decided to go for the safe manner of his shot selection. And Selby just sends the cue ball back for the black ball cushion. And doesn't have anything easy there set up for Trump in terms of the safety. And also, I mean, he can try and take that red in towards the right middle with a safety approach, but ultimately I don't think he's going to be able to focus enough on the potting angle. I'll catch up later and maybe watch this back. Stephen, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in anyway. Let's see if Selby is going to go for the red into the right middle this time around. I mean, he's got that one available to himself, and also just checking to see if he's going to have a couple of those reds to be sent into one another to try and have those cannon away from each other and into the top part of the table. Played the shot pretty nicely, to be fair. Stephen, good to see you. Yeah, likewise. And certainly same for me there, Kevin. Lovely to see Stephen in the chat. And yeah, I mean, as it stands, Zhao, which Stephen would have been rooting for, I think would have been enjoying this match had he been participating in this final himself. And Trump now trying to accelerate that red. Ooh, he's going to fluke this one into the right middle. And let's see if he's going to be able to bounce back on this one. Because it's a nice little bonus if you're on the black here, but don't think that's the case. Is he going to be able to take the black onto the right middle? I don't really think so. Probably just roll the cue ball in behind the black and have Selby positioned in a bit of a difficult escape route to try and find. So once again, a single point of a break is going to be the end of Judd Chump's sequence now. And well, in the previous couple of frames, you have to say, it hasn't really been managing to get going there from Chump's point of view. And that 3-1 of a gap that he had early in the match does seem like it has been sort of quite far away from the reality there for Chump. And Selby now looking to try and see if he's going to go for the cue ball to try and send it into the reds from the left or right cushion. And yeah, he's just having a look to see if he's going to be able to hit it from the left. And so I think it's going to be easier for him because he's not going to have anything available into the right middle for Trump to try and exploit. But ultimately, I mean, for that to be the case, he has to hit the shot with the perfect base selection. And goes to guide that cue ball into the reds with minimal power. And he's trying to have that shot taken. Doesn't want the cue ball to drop into the pocket though. And I think he's played the shot quite nicely there for himself. Let's see if Trump is going to have anything available to try and take the red into the left middle. With it probably being his only chance that he's got available to his name. And I mean, the one into the yellow pocket could have been a nice little invitation as well, but don't think that's going to be the case for him right now. I think there's going to be blue and a couple of other reds in the way. So realistically, it is a shot into the left middle or nothing there for Trump in terms of the attacking approach. And if he wants to go for a safety play, he can try and cannon the cue ball into the main pack of reds and send the white in behind the black, not for the first time in this frame here. And once again, Trump having a look to see if he's going to be able to go for that approach. And I think in the end, he's going to be going for a safe manner of a short selection. Trump lose all 4 will hurt, he will. But yeah, he hasn't really managed to get that traction on the cue ball well enough. Because he's going to have that red position for Selby to be taken into the yellow pocket. So let's see if Selby's going to be able to do himself another favour and get himself lined up for one more break chance. Which of course at this stage, with the way the red's position, is going to be very healthy there for him indeed. And is going to accelerate him off into a great chance of actually taking this frame in a single visitor table. He's going to get the red in certainly into the yellow pocket, played the shot nicely to get himself lined up for the cue ball to be very close to the blue to be taken into the left middle. And let's see if he's going to be able to try and play it in the way, which is going to have the cue ball position for the red to be taken into the right middle. So now Selby is going to have one more red available into left corner or right middle, as I say, whichever one he wants to take on. Take the pink away from the blue ball zone. I think is going to be the next colour for him to try and take. Or, I mean, if the pink is not in the way of the blue, he may actually leave that one for a while. And he does actually go for the blue to be lined up for the right middle pocket, which is the way for you to try and play alongside the pink. And obviously clarify that, you know, the second most expensive colour is not going to be in the way of the blue right now. So Selby gets himself a break of 12 points and counting. So having countless number of reds available in this position, and gets the first red into the left corner this time around. 11 points is the gap for his name, and just having a look to see if he's going to be able to guide that cue ball away and past the blue and take the pink back on his spot there. And of course there's going to be a bit of a boost there for Selby as well, for the simple reason of, you know, you're going to have black, blue and pink all back on their spots there, which it's going to be a nice little bonus there for Selby at this stage of the frame, especially with him trying to have all of those points scored on the break building perspective. Right here, right now, once again looking to see if he's going to be able to go for the red to be played into the left corner without needing the extension. Doesn't seem to be the case, so has to grab one for his cue. And great chance, it is a great chance now. He's got 3 reds available onto the lower part of the table. He's got the little cluster of 2 more of those reds. And he's got 3 more reds on the top part of the table waiting there for him. So once again, taking a little bit of time in between those shots to ensure that he's got the perfect preparation there for himself. And cannon the cue ball into the little cluster of those 2 reds. And ultimately, don't think it's going to do him any damage, but ultimately I don't think he's actually managed to get anything better out of that position, because those 2 reds will still need attention from the cue ball on a couple of next shots out there. Now Selby manages to play the shot through the black, get the cue ball lined up for the red to be taken into the right middle. So once again, 25 points of advantage, 99 still on the table. Selby should ensure that he takes the position away from Chomp right now, and does it in the visit to the table that he's currently on right now. So plays for the blue to be taken into the right middle. And still will have 4, maybe, as I say, 4 reds on the top part of the table, and 1 more that you can get in behind of for the lower part of it. And until you reach those sort of 2 reds, which still could be possible, should you aim the cue ball into any one of them. Split the 2 away from each other and have both of them positioned into the left or right corner of the table to try and take there for Selby. As Mark now tries to take that red into the right middle, plays the shot nicely. So 32 points of an advantage, 83 on the table. Very much closing in on that frame ball zone there for him. And of course will be 4 on the bounce. Incredible stuff there, especially against the world number 1. For him to be flying, making 2 centuries there in the opening 4 frames. And, you know, ever since the interval, it does look like only one person has managed to turn up. And it has been Mark Selby so far. You know, getting himself 38 points of a break. So once again, has to play the colour selection through the ball colours. Getting the cue ball lined up for the red to be taken into the yellow pocket, and probably will have brown or green to be taken after it. So 75 points on the table right now for Selby. And still having a couple of those reds available. 37 points is the gap. And, well, realistically, I mean, there's only 1 red which you can't probably get an easy access to on the left-hand rail. Apart from that, you know, you've got 3 reds in open play or somewhat close to it, and you've got 2 more reds, which I have mentioned are very close to each other, but still located in open play as it stands. Selby will get another brown into the yellow pocket, get himself lined up for the red to be taken into the green pocket for good measure. And I mean, the camera focus is on Chomp for a couple of those shots, and ultimately he only has himself to blame. Way too many errors, way too little consistency play, and Selby has managed to capitalise on the majority of those mistakes and get himself a nice little lead now of 44 points. 3 more reds, GG's, yes, certainly. You know, he's going to have way more than 51 points of a gap. And in fact, I think he's actually going to be one red and a colour now. He's going to be taking him over the line. So after these reds, so as I say, so maybe 2 reds is going to be enough there for him. And that's exactly what Selby's having a look right now, asking the referee to clean the white. Having a look at the scoreboard. So he's got 5 reds on the table. And he's got 2 of those in open play. 2 more very close to each other. And pretty much forming a little plant there, which isn't gonna go anywhere. So has to send the cue ball into those 2 if, of course, he feels like that is going to be the need there for him. But I think from Selby's point of view, he's going to try and exploit the 2 reds that are in open play right now and try and get himself lined up onto the 2 of those quite later on in the break. Now, of course, sort of 53 points is the advantage for Mark Selby, 59 on the table. So he needs this red to ensure that Judd is going to need Snookers to get himself back in this frame. And ultimately, he'll take a collar after this one. And it is very unlikely that Judd will come back to the table after this one. Because, you know, he's going to need a Snooker anyway after this red. So you take the brown into the green pocket. And ultimately, it is going to be 3 Snookers needed there at that stage for Judd. Of course, it is important for Selby to try and play for the brown. And he hasn't. So he has played for yellow or green to be taken. It's not going to matter which one of them he actually takes on here. So 54 points of a gap will be 57 with the green. So 2 Snookers is going to be needed there for Chomp to still be able to climb himself back into the frame. And until then, Selby's going to have one more shot to try and have those reds separated away from each other. Playing the shot quite nicely, to be fair. And even though it is going to be a difficult cut of trying to get the red into the left corner. Now let's see if he's going to be able to make this one stick. He will. Lovely little shot there from Selby. And now, well, it ain't going to matter now for him actually winning the frame. So let's see if we're going to have an almighty century break here. Because now 58 points of a gap, 43 on the table. Chomp ain't coming back in the opening session now. So it's a lovely little break there from Selby. Ultimately manages to get himself over the line here. And right now just trying to play the red away from the cue ball because he hasn't landed on it. So, I mean, he has still tried to roll this one in. And he's actually managed to roll this one into the corner pocket. Lovely little shot there from Selby. So the century hunt is still just about on there for him. Although he is going to have that red position on the left-hand rail. So the positional play from the cue ball ain't going to be easy right now. So has to play this one with power. And ultimately, he's going to miss the green. So the break of 64 points to end the session here. You would see him. I mean, is it going to be the end of a session? Or is it going to be one more frame being played in between the 2 players? As there does seem to be no confirmation from the referee. So we are going the distance now. So it is going to be 9 frames to be separating the 2 players here. Of course, we have started before the match has reached the 3-hour mark. And, you know, it was a nice little clearance from Selby in the end. One more. Yes, it is. Happy. And Selby will enjoy his rest. But it will be quite a short one, though. Because he's still going to have one more frame to try and win there for him. And ultimately, it does turn into a massive quest there for Judd to ensure that Mark Selby ain't going to be heading into a 6-3 of a deficit. Let me just take a quick intermission myself, and I'll be back with less than sort of 2 minutes with you, and for us to get the 9th frame underway. Right then, and we are back for the 9th frame, so not quite an expected way for us to get things started, especially since the interval, you have to say, it has been an absolute domination of a performance from Mark Selby, and you can see points since the interval, 345 from Selby and only 60 for Judd now, as we get the 9th frame underway, and Selby has got a long shot available to him straight away into the left corner, and he takes it beautifully. So really nice little shot there for him to get the position on the black as well. See if he's going to be able to get the black into the right corner and get the cue ball lined up for a couple of more reds to be taken into the left middle this time around. And yeah, manages to cannon the cue ball away from the black, so still gets himself lined up for a couple of those reds. And ultimately, I mean, surely Selby can't make it 5 on the bounce. I mean, with all the momentum that he's got, I mean, it's so difficult to do that against the world number 1, especially for the way that Selby prefers to play the game. He wants to be taking sort of chances one at a time there for him and make sure that he's going to grind out the frames there in favour of his. Right now gets the second black in and gets himself lined up for one more red to be taken into the right corner. Nice little chance there that he presents to himself. And let's see if he's going to be able to exploit it on this occasion. Has been very consistent ever since that interval started there. And of course, let's see if he's going to have that one more chance of extending his lead to a 6-3 advantage there going into session number 2. Ultimately underrun slightly for that red. So I think he'll be forced to try and take it into the right middle instead. And try and have the cue ball lined up for the black one more time, to have that sequence of 4 reds and 4 blacks taken. So once again, plays the cue ball quite nicely onto the right hand cushion and bounces away from the edge of the table and has himself lined up for the black one more time for the left corner this time though. I mean, he's having a look to see if he's going to have the cue ball as an advantage there for him to try and send the white onto the main pack of reds and have the cue ball accelerated away from those, with a little bit of backspin applied. I think he's going to go for this one. Has to make sure he judges the pace perfectly though. And he hasn't really managed to do that though. So the break of 32 points. And it looks like it is going to be a safety shot there for him to try and exploit. He's having a look to see if there's a plant available into the right corner. I mean, there does seem to be a sign of it into the right corner. But he has to play that one with the 3rd red to try and disappear into the right corner. So it's going to be a difficult approach there for him to try and play it. And therefore, probably still has to consider a safety shot as his prime suggestion at this stage. So once again, Judd, well, certainly doesn't seem to be a fan of Judd right now. But listen, from Judd's point of view, he has come up against Selby that has managed to wear him down. And it clearly has been approached from Selby. It clearly has been the plan for him to, if things are going to go wrong, and especially if Sean is going to be able to get himself off into a great start, Selby was going to try and always be on the back foot, trying to, you know, grind Chomp out, force him to play for those risky shots that he doesn't really want to go for, but he has got no other short selection. And in the end, you have to say, like, ever since that interval, Selby has managed to come back with a much better performance. You know, if you compare him to Judd Chomp or anyway, to any one of the players that have actually featured in the Champion of Champions this week. Let's see what we're going to have right here, right now, because Selby is having a look at those reds to try and take them into the right corner. Ultimately, once again, probably has to go for another approach and try and send those reds into the right corner in one way, shape or form. But, I mean, he's looking like he's going to go for the approach of attacking display here. So, of it being some sort of a attacking shot there for him. If he's going to go for the plant into the right corner or not, we're yet to find out now. But where's he going to get the cue ball? Into the safe zone or not? And yeah, he's tried to go for a plant himself, but ultimately he wasn't risking anything at that stage. So the break of 32 points is going to be the end of Mark Selby for the time being. But you can pretty much guarantee that he's going to come back to the table with him not leaving anything to Judd Chomp. So pushing that red quite far away from the corner pocket. Chomp will be selling his cue if he doesn't win today. Well, you know, there certainly seems to be a lot of merchandise from the Champion of Champions. All the t-shirts from the players with all the nicknames in the back. Maybe to that list is going to be added a cue from Judd Chomp. If he is, of course, as you say, to lose the Champion of Champions final. Not for the first time in his career. So once again, just having a look to see if he's going to be able to get himself lined up for this red to be taken in towards the right corner pocket. That plan that Selby was trying to exploit previously. In the end, not going to be the case here. And of course, with Selby putting that red over the right corner pocket, it does look like it is going to take some of the time for the players to establish who's going to be the next player to get himself a chance. And Selby just having a look to see he's going to be able to play the cue ball on towards the cushion, and in the way that he's not going to have any of those reds available to give away to Judd Chomp. Re-rack never going to happen with 32 points for a Selby's point of view, is it? And you know, if we didn't get a re-rack in what was it, frame number 4, and Chomp actually somehow managed to go and win that one, even though he was you know, struggling to win the safety battle against Selby at that stage. I mean, Selby does seem to be a bit concerned as he walks away from the table. Maybe he's left the red on there for Chomp to try and take into the right corner. And I mean, ideally, Chomp wants to try and exploit something here because he's not going to be able to win this frame if he just sits back and allows Selby to try and take those long shots himself. He's got the double lined up into the left middle now, and he's just having a look to see what are the options that he's got ahead of himself. He's got that red that he can try and roll in towards the yellow pocket right now. Or another option can be provided to him if the cue ball is going to be cannon into that red and try and have that one into the top part of the table. But of course has to make sure he's going to be able to cover up that red, which has been pushed over the right corner pocket by Selby previously. So let's see what the approach is going to be, and that's exactly the approach. So Chomp clearly trying to have that green in between the cue ball and the target red into the right corner. But ultimately, I think he could have done a bit better from the way that he's pushed that red, which was the target ball for him, onto the lower part of the table in the way that he's going to have the same red available for Selby to try and play into the left corner of the table. And let's see what the approach is going to be for Selby, because he can try and exploit the right hand side of the table by trying to roll up the cue ball in towards that red, very close by the right corner pocket. Instead, it doesn't seem like he's going to have another look at this one, so doesn't want to make a rush decision as it stands, and exploit the room of trying to send the cue ball on towards the Blackwell cushion. For now, it probably will be one of the safer places there for him to try and plant the white. And yeah, having a look at the right hand rail, once again he wants to try and send the white on towards the right hand side of the table and try and cannon it into the red, which is currently closest to the right corner pocket. Ultimately taking more than a minute on the shot already. Let's see what his decision is going to be now. Of course, he's not going to be able to try and pot it now, because even if he does, he's not going to have attraction on the black to try and get the positional play, unless he plays with one with power. Ooh, he has played it with power, and he's trying to get the red in, and ultimately, it's a nice little short selection from Selby, because he managed to judge this one really well. You know, play that from the cushion, and yeah, be unhappy with the way that fortune didn't get him anything on the colours point of view. And ultimately, it does look like one of those points that, even though it was a brilliant pot, only going to get him a single point out of it. So let's see what Selby's going to try and sort of think of right now. Try and get the cue ball onto the top part of the table, yes, of course, but ultimately, in which way does he want to place the cue ball? Is it going to be in behind the brown? Is he going to be in behind the yellow? Thinking clever Selby today. Well, as I say, he has taken a long time on that shot, but ultimately he managed to play it really well. So you can't really criticise him for that. And now just looking to try and exploit the way for him to get out of this situation. And place the cue ball onto the safe spot for him. So try and have yellow to be taken in towards its own pocket, you would think, at this stage. Maybe towards the left-hand cushion. And that's exactly the approach that he's taken. So trying to have the cue ball lined up for that red into the left middle and make sure that there's going to be a brown in between the cue ball and that target red. So back to Chomp it goes. And still no sign of Chomp actually getting anywhere near sort of the break building form that he has been showing in the opening session all throughout the majority of the tournament campaign here in Leicester at the Champion of Champions for the majority of the week. And he does seem like he's going to go for one of those all or nothing shots as he tries to hammer the red into the right corner. In the end, that one is going to bounce away from the pocket and catch the other red on the way in. I think Chomp is going to be pretty lucky that he hasn't left the same red away to Selby, although the cue ball's positioning was actually controlled there from Chomp. The red ball positioning certainly wasn't. And now Selby can try and send that same red to the lower part of the table, get the cue ball lines up for the top part of it, and have another safety battle lined up for himself. So let's see what Chomp is going to be able to do right now, because he's having a look at this cue ball for the way that he wants to set it to the lower part of the table, you would think, with Selby not leaving any easy safety shot approach for him at this stage. So let's see if he's going to be able to guide the cue ball onto the top part of the table, or he's indeed going to try and attempt the long pot once again. He has gone for the long pot and he's managed to make this one stick really, really nicely there for him, to be fair. And now Judd Chomp, can he have one more sort of statement to try and pull out against Mark Selby right now to try and stop that winning streak of the Jester here in Leicester? And certainly that's where the crowd are going to get sort of involved in favour of Mark Selby, as Chomp gets himself lined up for the black, takes the black nicely, but ultimately is he going to have any sort of red selection into the left corner this time around? Come on, Chomp. I think he does have a red available into the right corner, which is going to be very important there for him as it stands. Rolls the cue ball nicely, and of course he's going to have all sorts of variety of reds available for him to be taken into left and right corner. So try and take the black away from the cue ball here, and have the white accelerated away off into the top part of the table for the next couple of shots. For now he wants to navigate the white onto the lower part of the table, eliminate all the easy reds, and get himself lined up for the black. One more time into the right corner. I think he can try and leave that red, which is currently positioning himself onto the lower part of the table, at least for the time being. I think he'll still need that one sooner rather than later, because of that gap that Selby has managed to build on earlier in the frame of 33 points. I think it's very unlikely that Chomp will be able to score 68 points or so on the remaining 6 reds that he's got to his name. And played the shot pretty well. Gets a little kiss off the pink to ensure that he's going to have the positioning on the red available into the right middle. Now 9 points is the difference for Mark Selby's advantage. So, I mean, if Chomp manages to take that red into the right middle and takes it with a black, he's going to be able to get himself only 1 point away from Selby. Not going to be able to take it with the black, though. And what's the colour that he's going to be aiming for? He's over on for the blue. So taking the green probably is going to have to be the priority now for Chomp. And, I mean, technically, as I say, if he gets himself onto the expensive colours, which green, of course, ain't going to be part of, he's going to be able to get himself enough points of a gap to ensure that he's not actually going to require that red to be played along the cushion and into the left corner. But right now, as it stands, he's still going to need that one. And having a look to see if he's going to be able to go for the pink into the left corner, or does he indeed go for the green to be taken into its own pocket? Yeah, it's a chance that he certainly needs to take right now. And a very important transition for the cue ball to be sent onto the lower part of the table. Has to send this one with a bit of power and play the shot quite nicely there. If he does find a gap for the cue ball to see that red, try and play it into the right corner. It doesn't seem like he's worried about the position of the cue ball, so probably has managed to play the shot pretty well. Although the white is going to be quite close to the cushion. which makes the shot a bit tricky there for Chomp, but manages to get himself out of that situation. So now, 4 reds available after this black. You take them all with the black, and ultimately, you know, you're going to be there or thereabouts with that 35 points on a cushion to your name, as it is now going to be. So 3 points advantage there for Chomp to be taking into the last 4 reds here. He's got the first one to go into the right middle or right corner right now. But ultimately, he's going to be playing for the blue here. So he clearly doesn't seem like he's too worried about that red, which is currently sitting himself and finding himself quite nicely onto the black ball cushion. And you can see he has started with a brilliant long shot there from Judd Chomp, as he manages to take it along the cushion pretty much throughout the entire length of the table and rolls that one into the left corner. So has overrun for the blue once again though, so has to take the brown. So I don't really like the fact that his positional play has been way below average ever since that interval, because he has to send the cue ball the long way around. And even though he does manage to recover the majority of those shots, one of those times he's not going to be able to do that. Gets himself into a difficult position and therefore allows Selby to have one more chance to close off the 9th frame and get himself a nice little cushion to try and be part of going into session number 2. Needs last red if he takes blue. Yes, I think he certainly will. And now 9 points is his advantage, with him taking pink into the left middle. Plays the shot quite nicely right now and gets himself lined up for the red into the right corner, which he takes anyway. So now 43 points on the table. So as I say, still will need that last of the reds, which is currently positioning himself quite in a comfortable spot there underneath the black ball spot. So I don't think you'll need the colour though, so he's got to be able to get himself sort of more of a gap than 27 points. As he now 22 ahead. He's going to be around 30 if he takes the red with the black, which is going to be the easiest way for the cue ball to be sent for the red to be played along the cushion and into the left corner. Plays the shot really nicely out there, and Selby in the background. Of course, you'll be disappointed with that, because when you win sort of 4 frames on the bounce against Judd Chomp, you want to make it 5 for it to actually make a difference to you. In case of, you know, you're going to have 3 frame cushion going into that session number 2. Instead, it does look like it is going to be only 1 frame advantage there for Mark Selby to take into session number 2, as Chomp still needs to roll the red into the left corner, and he will do that. So now it is a snooker needed for Mark Selby as it stands. So Chomp ideally still wants to get the black into the right corner pocket and have the cue ball to be sent towards the top part of the table. He's going to be able to drop the black in, so it is now going to be 38 points of advantage. So 3 snookers needed on the yellow. Don't think it's going to be possible for Selby to try and put that comeback to a successful ending for himself. And Chomp is just going to have that yellow to be sent closer to its own pocket and have the brown in the way. And in the end, it is going to be a frame taken by Judd Chomp, and at last, it is going to be a 5-4 advantage for Mark Selby to take into session number 2. And, well, once again, match back on. It certainly is now, because, you know, Chomp has managed to do a very important part of the task, was to still be alive in this match. You know, when you lose 4 frames on the bounce and you're only 1 frame behind going into the second session, you have to say you've, well, pretty much done a really good job of doing a damage limitation to yourself. As for Selby, he's managed to exploit the game really, really well. I think the majority of those frames were really similar. You know, Chomp managed to take the matters into his own hands very early into that match and to get himself a century break on the board, which was responded by another century by Mark Selby. All of a sudden, we get ourselves into a 1 frame each one very quickly out there. Then another break of 73 points and 100 points plus from Judd Chomp gets him into a nice little lead going into the interval. And ultimately then, at that stage, it was Selby's match to lose, because he managed to win 4 frames on the bounce, all being very similar, quite well, to each other. You know, some of them have taken over an hour, some of them taken less than 20 minutes. But ultimately, it was a 5-3 of a gap for Mark Selby to try and hold on to. He didn't quite manage to do that though, and Judd Chomp now is going to win the 9th frame, and he's going to get him into a nice little Well, situation's still going into that second session because with him being such a higher seed going into this tournament, I still think he's going to be a minor favourite, although Selby will have some sort of advantage there with him being 5-4 up there on Watchalong and being 5 frames away from claiming the title for the first time this season. Watchalong will be looking for the first one in 12 months out there, and let's see which one of them is actually going to be able to become and be crowned the champion of champions. Thank you very much for everyone tuning in, and feel free to tune in for the second session as we see which one of them is going to be able to take it into the win for them and claim the title and win the 150,000 of the paycheck as well. And the runner-up will receive only 60,000 of those. As I say, thank you very much, and feel free to tune in for session number 2. Take care.